Chapter 37-35. Xiaomu and the others nodded upon hearing this. The prerequisite for participating in the Earth Yuan ranking competition was to be in the top 500 of the Heaven Yuan ranking. If that was the case, then there was no need to participate in the Earth Yuan ranking competition. Big brother Xingqian, does that mean the Heaven Yuan ranking competition this time is very important? Little Fatty asked with a smile. Mu Xingqian nodded. It's very important. The dean didn't make it clear when he sent us the last time. We don't know what the competition is about. Qi Xianxian frowned slightly. Do you know what it is? What do you think it will be? Will it be a one-on-one elimination competition? Or will it cause some trouble? Don't worry. A voice came from the door. Everyone looked up and saw the third young master of the Duan clan, Duan Tianya, walking in with a smile. It will definitely cause some trouble. Third young master Duan gave everyone an affirmative answer. Qi Xianxian and the rest. Why did they feel more and more uncertain? What did he mean by it will definitely cause some trouble? Couldn't the academy treat their students well? Why did they have to torture them to death? Why do I feel so uneasy? Qi Xianxian muttered to herself. Third young master Duan, you're an old member of the academy. Tell us, how did the Heaven Yuan ranking competition last year go? It's simple. Third young master Duan shrugged calmly. Throw the students into the great forest of the north, the Sea of Forgetfulness, or the frozen sky snow region. Let them survive for 10 days without an inner world, water, food, or clothes. Everyone, no clothes? Are you fucking kidding us? No clothes? Are you telling them to run around naked in the great forest of the north? Qi Xianxian and Little Fatty looked at each other. They crossed their arms over their chests and stared at each other silently. They couldn't imagine running around naked in front of their teammates. Duan Tianya couldn't help but laugh. Why are your thoughts so funny? When I said no clothes, I meant throwing you into a place like the frozen sky snow region to freeze. Without an inner world, you can't take thick clothes. Oh. Qi Xianxian and Little Fatty sighed at the same time and nodded at the same time. So that's how it is. Isn't that just setting them up? The Little Fatty's face was bitter as he hurriedly clutched his stomach and said, I can't not eat. If I don't eat for a day, I might starve to death. Duan Tianya, can't your awning be more promising? You're a level 12 great spiritual master, yet you say you'll starve to death if you don't eat for a day. Why do I feel like you're asking for a beating? Alright, stop competing. Ma Ta sat up straight and looked at the indifferent Duan Tianya with a pair of sparkling eyes. Third young master Duan, can you tell us more about last year's preliminaries? Hearing this, everyone nodded in unison. Then we can't bring anything? 10 days without eating or drinking is barely enough. But it's impossible to meditate without sleeping, right? That's right. Third young master Duan, how did you do it? You can't even bring a spoonful of soup with you? Duan Tianya looked at the group of strange children and couldn't help but roll his eyes. You want to bring soup? You can only bring a small bag with you. All the items you bring cannot exceed 3 liters. Chapter 37-36. What? Everyone's little faces immediately turned bitter. Sir Jojo frowned as he sized up Duan Tianya. Where did you go last year? The frozen snow region. Duan Tianya rolled his eyes. He felt incomparably desolate when he recalled his miserable state of being frozen like a dog that year. Oh right, I forgot to tell you guys. When we throw you there, we'll seal your cultivation and turn you into ants like normal people. What? This time, everyone including Jojo simultaneously revealed dumbfounded expressions. Was the Royal Academy such a scam? Not only did they throw people into a world of ice and snow, but they also freaking sealed their cultivation? Their inner worlds were sealed, but they weren't allowed to bring any food or water. Their small bags couldn't weigh more than 3 liters, and they weren't even allowed to bring an extra piece of clothing. Duan Tianya cheerfully nodded at them. Every time he introduced the preliminaries to his juniors, he could hear howls and cries from the audience. But don't worry, as long as you concoct the antidote, you can recover your cultivation. If you cultivate properly, you can even break free from the restriction on your spiritual conscious and successfully open your inner world. Everyone chuckled. They didn't need to think with their butts to know that it wouldn't be simple. According to the Royal Academy's nature of scamming students, this step would definitely be very complicated, and the path would definitely be very bumpy. Duan Tianya patted Ma Ta and Lu Yu's shoulders to encourage them. Don't worry, we'll use special crystals to scan your entire bodies before we leave. Even if you have a storage talisman or storage bracelet on you, it will still be confiscated. Why did they freaking feel more and more uneasy? Everyone looked at each other in dismay, and simultaneously felt like their vision was gloomy. The preliminaries will definitely maintain fairness and impartiality. It will definitely make everyone feel very hopeless, Duan Tianya said with a smile. Everyone suddenly had the urge to beat the person in front of them to death. Jojo, we're in the same team. Duan Yu, Qi Xianxian, and the others all said in unison. What a joke. If he couldn't even bring a storage talisman with him, he would have to follow Jojo to prevent himself from starving to death. Jojo had a portable spirit domain, so there was nothing to be afraid of. Xiao Mu's gaze was unfathomable as she glanced at everyone. Her heart was beating like a drum. She did not know whether she should tell them that she felt that if Headmaster Yun decided to scam her, he might seal away her spiritual domain as well. Impossible, impossible, the little girl comforted herself silently. Third brother Duan, where do you think the dean will arrange for us to go this time? Qi Xuanxuan's entire body trembled. She felt that the next 10 days would not be easy for her. Duan Tianya looked at everyone with a strange gaze and said faintly, no one knows what kind of crazy things will happen to the dean's head that day. Everyone burst out in laughter, and then their faces turned bitter. But don't worry. Fine. Third brother, don't say that word anymore. It makes me anxious. Ma Ta waved his hand at him with a wry smile. From the moment they entered until now, student Duan Tianya had said don't worry several times. But the contents of his words were the complete opposite of don't worry. The dean definitely won't let us have an easy time. Chapter 37:37. 5 days later, in front of the garden auditorium, in the East Living area of the Royal College, more than 13,000 students were standing there, looking like they had nothing left to live for. All of the students lined up in a row, each of them wearing the same uniform. However, some of the clothes were new, and some were old. Many of the senior students were wearing clothes that looked quite old. Dean Yun stood in front of the pool in front of the garden auditorium, with a smile on his face. He was giving an impassioned speech. Dear students, the Heaven Yuan ranking competition that you have all been waiting for is finally going to start today, June 18th. A war without gunpowder has begun. For our honor, for the honor of our country and our family, everyone must strive hard and strive to improve. Everyone let out an "oh" sound which attracted Arbor's attention. In order to ensure the fairness, impartiality, and openness of the Heaven ranking competition, this time, we will adopt the previous model. We will activate the portable recording array and record everyone's situation in the competition at any time. Arbor lowered his eyes silently. In addition, in order to make the competition more interesting, our school's instructors will add some bumps in the road and increase the difficulty of the competition. They may rob you of your food and water, or pretend to be masked men to attack you. They may even steal your last bit of food when you are exhausted, so that you will have no choice but to withdraw from the competition. Everyone, instructors, you really don't need to be so generous. This is just to add some fun to yourselves, right? Now, I will announce to everyone that the venue for this preliminary competition is the Phoenix Forest of the Divine Land. The target items are the Phoenix Flower and the Phoenix Wood. If you obtain 100-year-old Phoenix Wood, you will gain 1,000 points. If you obtain 1,000-year-old Phoenix Wood, you will gain 5,000 points. If you obtain a Phoenix Flower, congratulations! You will be the first winner of this preliminary competition. Everyone. Before the competition, I will give everyone an identity card and a pure and flawless ruby. If you lose your identity card, you will be forced to withdraw from the competition. If you lose your ruby, although you can continue to move around in the Phoenix Forest, but if you can't find your ruby before the end of the competition, you will be eliminated and become a failure, losing the qualification to participate in the final competition. In addition, during the preliminaries, you are not allowed to seriously injure your fellow students, nor are you allowed to kill your fellow students. If you are found to have committed serious crimes, you will be disqualified from the competition. You can take rubies from others. 1 ruby is worth 10 points. Before the end of the preliminaries, all students who do not reach a total score of 2,000 will be mercilessly eliminated. Do you understand? Everyone slowly nodded with a wooden expression. What he meant was that not only did he have to guard against those fucking instructors, who would appear at any time to steal his things, he also had to guard against his own classmates. If his ruby was snatched away by someone else, if he couldn't get it back before the competition, he would be finished. However, the worst thing would be if his identity card was taken away by someone else. He would immediately scram and no longer have the qualifications to continue playing. The preliminaries of the Heavenly Yuan ranking in the Royal School was a huge trap. Now, let the elders distribute the identity cards and rubies to everyone. These 2 things are extremely important. Chapter 37-38. Everyone, remember not to put these 2 items into your inner worlds after you take them. The dean will tell you the reason later. Seeing this villain principal hopping around in front of the pool and speaking cutely and maliciously, Xiao Mu had the urge to fly over and kick him directly into the pool so that he couldn't pull himself out. Mo Lian held back his laughter as he reached out to hold his wife's hand and stroked it comfortingly. Sir Jojo had already painted her violent side on her face. Her expression now was, I want to give Yin Piamiao a good beating. Keep your identity cards and rubies well. Elder Ke looked kindly at the students. After leaving the academy and going to Phoenix Grove, remember to take good care of yourselves. Poor children, your future will be miserable. Elder Ke passed the rubies and identity cards to Mata, who was queuing up. Mata scoffed as he took them and muttered, Don't think that I can't tell that you're gloating just because you're smiling kindly. Elder Ke gave the fatty more identity cards and rubies with an innocent expression. Do I have any? It's too obvious. Qi Xianxian and the fatty said in unison. The 2 of them took the identity cards and rubies one after the other, and walked back to their original positions angrily. A quarter of an hour later, the high-spirited villainous dean stood in front of the pool again with a smirk on his face. He said with a smile, Students, you must be looking forward to this unique combat trip. Sorry, my whole family isn't looking forward to it. No need to panic. I will send everyone to the outskirts of Phoenix Grove very soon. Dean Yun smiled deeply as he looked at the group of hopeless students. Here's the main point I want to announce. To ensure that everyone participating in the Heaven ranking preliminaries can train together in a fair and just environment, grow together, support each other, and improve together. We will work together with many teachers to temporarily seal your spiritual sense. You will become ordinary travelers who can't open your inner worlds. The new students who didn't know about this were dumbfounded. The older students who already knew about the academy's character continued to look hopeless. In addition, each of you must take a sealing pill before you set off. It will seal your cultivation base and spiritual energy. The freshmen below were in an uproar. What kind of preliminaries was this? Do you still want me to live? Roar. Everyone, don't panic. Principal Yun said calmly. Everyone knows that in our academy, other than the combat department, there are also many auxiliary department people who don't even know martial arts. What I want to say now is that the number of people in each team cannot exceed 8. There had to be an alchemist and an ordinary student in the team. You can choose anyone you like from the Zither Hall and the Learning Society. The role of an alchemist is extremely important. It's used to remove the seal. The faster the sealing pill is removed, the more secure you will be in the Phoenix Wood Forest. As for the students without cultivation, your team must protect them with all their might. If you injure him, 1,000 points will be deducted from each of you. We can make a judgment based on the severity of the injury. Now, I'll give you half an hour to form your team and prepare your belongings. We'll depart in an hour. Chapter 37-39. Of course, students who want to give up on this round's preliminaries can also immediately hand over your identity tablet and ruby. This way, you can automatically be eliminated. Dean Yun said cheerfully. This competition is an extremely fair competition. No one can cheat. I hope that talisman practitioners will take note. Before leaving the auditorium, I hope that every talisman practitioner will throw the storage talismans you carry on you into your inner worlds. Once you are discovered to be using storage talismans during the competition, haha, you know what I mean. Everyone. When Dean Yin said this, his small eyes scrutinized Sir Jojo for a long time before calmly retracting his gaze. In the blink of an eye, Xiao Mu was surrounded by Ma Ta's group of 7. Jojo, let's go together. Sir Jojo expressionlessly glanced at them. Just now, the cheater said that there must be a normal person in the 8-man team. Wuxia Xianxian, and the others all revealed bitter expressions. This meant that one of them was unlucky enough to be kicked out of the team. Freaking out at this time, Dou Fenghua walked over with a smile and nodded at Mo Lian with a gentle expression. Your Highness the Crown Prince, may this humble one travel with you? Dou Fenghua was a physician and also knew how to refine pills. Although her attainments in pills were not as good as Sir Jojo's, she should still be able to concoct the medicine to remove the seal. Mo Lian nodded to express his welcome, but his gaze was somewhat aggrieved as he glanced at his little wife. His wife was too popular, causing him, the husband, to be ostracized by them. How pitiful. My condolences, Mata. Little Fatty raised his paw and patted Mata's shoulder as he said this incongruously. Qi Xianxian resisted the urge to burst out laughing and coughed lightly. Mata, don't panic. You won't lose out by following the Crown Prince and Prince Chen. What kind of combat strength did these people have? Was there still a need to compete after entering Phoenix Grove? Mata, this fellow didn't need to worry about him at all. Arbor nodded and said to the pitiful Mata, follow Lien Duanyu and my eldest brother and do a good job. We still need to find an ordinary person to join our team. Big brother Ali, can I join you guys? Commandery Princess Xiangchang exclaimed as she ran over and stared at Duanyu aggrievedly. Duanyu's hair instantly stood on end. This fool always looked like she was on the verge of tears every time she saw him, making it seem like he didn't know how much he had wronged her. It was simply baffling. I'm sorry, but we already have an alchemist. Mu Xingchen rejected directly. Then he said to Mo Lian, go find an ordinary person. Little Fatty was an extremely smooth and slick person. He did not even need 3 minutes to immediately find an ordinary person for Lady Jojo and the others. This person was a bookworm from the Learning Society. His name was Chao Qi. Arbor asked him 3 times and unexpectedly found out by accident that this Chao Qi was actually the eldest nephew of the governor, Chao Jieto. You then. The little crown princess made the final decision. She raised her hand and punched Chao Qi's shoulder. As a result, Chao Qi staggered and almost fell to the ground from the young crown prince consort's punch. The little fatty speechlessly reached out to support him. Are you all right? Chao Qi shook his head with an awkward smile and curiously sneaked a glance at the little crown princess. Of course, he had heard of this crown princess before. Chapter 3740. All right, an hour is up. Everyone should be ready, right? As soon as Principal Yun finished speaking, the crowd, which had originally dispersed, hurriedly lined up in a line again. Principal Yun swept a glance at student Qin Jiu, who was standing at the front of the line, only to see that this student's entire body was covered in food and water tied to his shoulders with a rope. Principal Yun suppressed the smile on his lips and said expressionlessly, everyone can't carry more than 3 liters of food. Store all excess items in your inner world. Wails rang out from below. Arbor glanced around and saw several senior students carrying several blankets. Could it be that they were frightened by last year's freezing to death in the ice and snow domain? Now, everyone will pass through these 3 doors. It's fine, it's the same no matter which door you choose. After taking the sealing pill, everyone's spiritual senses were also sealed when they passed through the door illuminated by the special crystal. After losing their spiritual senses and spiritual energy, everyone felt a bit unwell. In addition, instructor, this storage talisman only has 3 cubic meters of space. Let me bring it with me. Instructor Wuwu, confiscate it. Don't worry, the instructor will return it to you on the day you return. When it was Arbor's turn to pass through the door, The special crystal that was as large as the top of his head scanned Arbor's body back and forth like a searchlight. You didn't smuggle a storage talisman, right? What's that on your hand? A space bracelet? A storage ring? Do you still need the principal to teach you? Stuff it all in your inner world. Principal Yun shouted at the expressionless little stoic. Don't hide the storage talisman in your hair. Don't worry. The entire Academy's 5,000+ instructors will all move out and enter Phoenix Grove to secretly observe everyone. You can fight, but you can't kill your fellow students. The little stoic stepped through the special crystal's ostentatious arched door with a bang, and expressionlessly turned around to shout at Principal Yin. Enough nonsense. Be on your way. Pay close attention to the stoic face. Principal Yin instructed. Don't let her have any extra items in her bag. Qi Xian and the others instantly complained incessantly. What to do? Even if the little stoic had food and water in the star domain, she wouldn't be able to take them out. Everyone, be careful when passing through the teleportation glyph array. The teleportation glyph array in the Academy is already very old, and doesn't have much glyph energy left. I don't know if it can last until the Phoenixwood Forest. If it's too far from the Phoenixwood Forest, everyone can only rely on their own abilities to get there. Because everyone's spiritual senses have been sealed, you can't even summon your beasts. When the time comes, you can only walk. Why did he want to beat up this villainous principal so badly? Why did it feel like the villainous principal's tone carried a strong sense of teasing and boundless excitement? How infuriating. What should I do? The array flashed continuously as all the students and instructors of the Royal School came out in full force. After the first batch of students came out of the array glyphs, a series of people stepped on cow dung, their faces full of disgust and despair. Where the hell was he teleported to? Was this Feng Milan? She didn't look like one at all. At the same time, Dean Yin, who was sipping his tea in a relaxed manner, chuckled and looked across him. The children have already set off. Wow, you also want to go? This time we must find the 1,000-year-old Phoenixwood. TT, remember to vote for the monthly vote, my dear copywriter, who has left me far away. Chapter 3741. Don't worry. The Academy has 13,000 students and 5,000+ instructors. They won't disappoint you. The slender figure with his back facing Dean Yin turned his head slightly and nodded at him slowly. Dong 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 dong. Right at this moment, an instructor rushed in and reported, Dean, it's bad. What are you panicking for? Yin Piamiao looked at him snappily. The Academy left behind 10 or so new instructors, responsible for staying in the Academy to control the overall situation and observe the situation of the students along the way. This young instructor was one of them. The recording glyph array would display the various experiences of the students along the way. The Academy had set up 3 large viewing screens, specially used to observe the movements of these students. Every day, there would be people watching continuously, so if the students wanted to smuggle something to cheat, the instructors would see through it at a glance. What's wrong? Yin Piamiao glanced at the young instructor snappily. What's the point of being so flustered? And at this moment, the slender figure opposite Dean Yun had long disappeared. Therefore, when the young instructor entered, he only saw Dean Yun drinking tea alone. Dean, it's really bad. That young instructor wiped off his cold sweat and chattered. There's a small problem with the teleportation glyph array, and it teleported the students to Oxhead Mountain. Dean Yun. The distance between Oxhead Mountain and Phoenix Grove was a freaking 3-day journey. This teleportation glyph array was too unreliable. There was actually such a huge deviation in the teleportation. It was definitely sick. Although he sympathized with the students in his heart, the villainous Dean didn't show anything on the surface, and even scolded the young instructor. What's the panic for? Isn't it just teleporting to Oxhead Mountain? Do you want me to teach them how to overcome such a small setback? Find someone to inform the students. Of course it's to quickly leave Oxhead Mountain and set off for Phoenix Grove. Dean Yin coughed lightly. As long as these students weren't idiots, they would definitely be able to find a way to get to Phoenix Grove. On the other side, the unlucky students who were teleported to Oxhead Mountain by the damned array were currently experiencing a very miserable escape. There was nothing they could do. who asked the place where they landed to happen to be where the herd of bulls gathered. In the end, they were chased by a large herd of wild bulls, scaring them so much that they pissed their pants. If it was in the past, these wild bulls would not be in the eyes of these practitioners at all. But now, everyone's spiritual sense and spiritual power were all sealed. They were simply a group of trash running wildly on the mountain. Lady Qiao Qiao and her team members used their fastest speed to climb up a few of the nearby trees with dense branches. The herd of cows ran over and occasionally bumped into tree trunks. The shadows of the trees swayed and the leaves swayed. Arbor's teammates climbed up the trees and tried to stabilize themselves. Seeing that they were safe for the time being, the others followed suit and hurriedly climbed up the tree. For a time, it was truly a situation where everyone was stepping on everyone else. The group of idiots was in a mess. The little fatty hung on a branch and saw countless hands tugging at his trousers, wanting to climb up the tree as well. He hurriedly kicked his fat legs and shouted, Don't pull. My pants are about to be ripped off by you bunch of bastards." This bunch of bastards, of all things. Why did they have to pull my pants? He really wanted to slap their faces. Jojo expressionlessly turned her head to look. Chapter 3742. A student from the academy was sent flying by an old bull's head, and his limbs were stretched out as he was flung away. Sir Jojo. After this bunch of weaklings lost their cultivation and spiritual energy, each and every one of them became peerless cripples. Even their brains seemed to have suffered a lot of damage. When such a large herd of bulls charged over, of course they would scatter and run. In the end, they were a bunch of fools who were running together. Wasn't this giving the herd a target? The herd of bulls charged over and hit them accurately. They didn't need to choose at all. Mommy. The students were crying for their mommy and daddy when they turned around and saw the little stoic pulling out a shiny black crossbow from her bag. She then released an arrow behind them. With a bang, a ferocious bull that was galloping over was sent flying. With a moo sound, that dumb bull was instantly sent flying by the crossbow arrow and ruthlessly smashed into another wild bull that was charging over. Instantly, a chain reaction was set off, and the dozen or so charging wild bulls crashed into each other and smashed into a pile. Arbor jumped down from the lush tree and lightly tapped his feet on the ground. He waved at his teammates and said, "Go, little fatty," and the others naturally jumped down from the tree in a hurry. The only funny one was Stubborn Chow's eldest nephew. He hugged a tree trunk and stammered as he said hoarsely, "Be brothers, help me up." Little fatty's mouth twitched. He stretched out two hands and waved at Chao Chi. "Jump." Chao Chi closed his eyes and abruptly jumped down from the tree. Little fatty Lu Yu and the others who were originally standing under the tree all scattered with a whoosh. Our dear Chao Chi landed on the ground with his butt blooming. He groaned as he covered his butt. Chi Xianxian ran a few steps forward and held back the smile on her face. She hurriedly pulled Chao Chi up and took out a bottle of ointment from her pocket. She stuffed it into Chao Chi's hand and said, "Remember to find a place where there is no one around to apply this. It should be fine in an hour." Chao Chi looked at everyone with a bitter expression, but he saw that the little crown princess had already started running forward. "Go, go, go, go!" Jiang Shaoxin waved his hand to greet everyone. The team of 8 hurriedly followed Arbor's pace and rushed up the mountain. The Oxhead Mountain had 3 peaks, each of which looked like a huge ox head. Xiaomu led her team to dash out first, not caring about the group of idiots behind her. The herd of bulls was still chasing after the crowd. Arbor led his teammates and scurried around the mountain. It didn't take long for them to lose sight of the large group of people behind them. It was quiet again. Without the threat of the bison herd, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Only then did they realize that their heads were covered in cold sweat. Chao Chi was even more panting. He sat down on the ground and wished he could lie down with his arms and legs spread out. This experience really isn't for a human to do. Arbor glanced at him and rolled his eyes. "Does anyone know where this is?" "This, looking at the terrain, it should be the Oxhead Mountain without a doubt." Chao Chi wiped the sweat off his head and sat up straight. The distance between the Oxhead Mountain and the Phoenix Wood Forest is about 3 days on foot. But I remember that there is a small post house at the foot of the Oxhead Mountain. We can find the way down the mountain earlier and rent a carriage to get there. Chao Chi patted his bulging pocket. I brought money. Everyone rolled their eyes at him speechlessly. This guy didn't bring a pile of money when he went out, right? Chapter 3743. With money, we can buy things anytime. Chao Chi explained to them. I've done my research. There are a total of 3 small fortifications in Phoenix Wood Forest. When the time comes, we can go there to replenish our supplies. As long as we don't carry more than 3 liters, we can replenish our supplies at any time. All right, Bookworm Chow. Qi Xianxian raised her hand and slapped him hard, grinning as she said. So you've done your research? How about it? Which way is the fastest way to get down the mountain to the relay station? Chao Chi said, I know a shortcut to the bottom of the mountain. We have to hurry. That small relay station may not have many carriages. If it's rented by others, I'm afraid we'll have to run there on our own 2 legs. Everyone nodded in unison. Don't joke, they were all ordinary people now. If they ran for 3 days and 3 nights to reach Phoenix Wood Forest, even if they didn't die, they would be half dead. Chao Chi glanced at them. The preliminary round lasts for 10 days. The countdown starts now. Chao Chi took out his identity token. Everyone leaned over to take a look, only to see a big red number 119 on the back of the token. What does that mean? Qi Xianxian was confused. Chao Chi. It means 10 days, 2 hours have already passed. Everyone. This was a fucking countdown. Excellent. Then let's hurry. Little Fatty shouted with a face full of urgency. If we waste too much time here, we won't have time to earn points in Phoenix Wood Forest. Everyone hurriedly nodded, their gazes shifting to Chao Chi. Chao Chi nodded slightly, immediately following the mountain path, leading everyone to a small path. Chao Chi, you know where we are now? Duanmu Qing asked with a surprised gaze. After they were transported to Oxhead Mountain, they were attacked by a herd of bulls. Then everyone fled in panic. In the process of running, they didn't look at the road, leaving everyone behind to run here. There were no villages ahead, no shops behind, and no landmarks, but Chao Chi seemed to have a card up his sleeve, clearly recognizing the place. Chao Chi nodded, his expression matter-of-factly saying, I remember. We ran from the place where we were attacked by the bulls, took 3 turns, and reached the 6th narrow path on the 3rd peak of Oxhead Mountain. If we follow this path now, we will soon reach the small relay station. Don't worry, it will take at most an hour. Everyone looked at Bookworm Chow in surprise. They didn't expect a bookworm that the chubby boy had randomly picked up to have such a good memory. Indeed, everyone who entered the royal school, regardless of whether they had a cultivation base or not, were all geniuses with some skills. Bookworms had 0 cultivation talent, but they had significant advantages in other aspects. Everyone immediately had more admiration for this new member of the team. Although Little Fatty wasn't very reliable, he had a good eye for people. Apparently, the Little Fatty also felt that Bookworm Chow had made him proud. He happily reached out and patted Bookworm Chow's shoulder. He laughed and said, Little Cheesy, follow us from now on. I guarantee that you'll get to eat and drink. Chao Shu's face was bitter as he pitifully said, Let's get through this crisis first. Under the lead of Chao Chi, who had a strong memory, the group quickly descended from the 3rd peak of Oxhead Mountain and found the small post house at the foot of the mountain. After going in and inquiring, everyone couldn't help but heave a huge sigh of relief. Chapter 3744. There were a total of 3 horse carriages in this small relay station. One had already been lent out in the morning, and the other had been driven out 2 days ago by someone from the relay station. Chao Chi and the rest were just about to borrow the last horse carriage. Thank goodness they had arrived earlier, or else they would have been dog-tired. After discussing with the steward of the relay station, they borrowed the horse carriage along with the coachman for a total of 300 spirit coins. Chao Chi counted the spirit coins in the pouch and handed it over to the smiling steward. Little Fatty was the first to jump onto the carriage, rolling around in it. Oh my, I can finally rest my legs. After running for such a long time, he was almost at his physical limit. Among the group, only Sir Jojo's breathing was steady, and his expression did not change at all. Even Duan Muqing's forehead was sweating, and his face was flushed red. The coachman smiled and invited everyone to board the carriage. He raised his whip and was about to lash it. Suddenly a sharp voice rang out. "Wait, we will buy this horse carriage." The coachman's hand paused, and Arbor ordered, "Ignore it, let's go." "Yes, Mississippi," the coachman nodded, and with a lash of the whip, the horse carriage began to move. "Hey, the carriage in front. What's going on?" After a few shouts, 2 to 3 spirit stallions galloped and caught up. The leader was a tall and thin girl. She frowned and coldly glanced at the coachman and grabbed his arm. "I told you to stop. Didn't you hear me?" Bang! There was a sudden movement of air. A man beside her shouted, "Be careful, Junior Lin." Lin Junner was slightly shocked, and hurriedly retracted her hand, only to see a black gold arrow shoot out from the carriage, aiming for her left hand. This black gold arrow almost cut off her finger. If she had not retracted her hand quickly, she would have been in big trouble. Arbor's cold voice came from the carriage. "Don't stop. Damn it." Lin Junner was furious, and just as she was about to explode, she heard the screams of a few senior brothers. "Junior Lin, be careful of that arrow." The black gold arrow made a turn in the air, and once again flew towards its target. Clang! A feather arrow pierced through the air, and struck the black gold arrow to the ground. The black gold arrow trembled on the ground for a moment. Just as it was about to jump up, it was stepped on by a large foot. "Stop the car." Arbor's cold voice sounded. Duan Muqing quickly reached out to hold her little hand, and shook his head at her. "Jojo." Right now they were all useless trash. Hey, the black gold arrow was hers, and had been with her for many years. She would never allow her things to fall into the hands of others. The little girl lifted the curtain, and came out of the carriage with a cold expression on her pretty face. Her eyes were cold as she looked straight at the people on the other side. Among the 4 people, there were 3 men and 1 woman. They were all riding horses, and behind them was a broken carriage. From the looks of it, their carriage was broken, and they wanted to change at a small relay station. But they did not expect Arbor and the others to cut them off first. They were unwilling to give up, so they tried to stop them. Lin Junner looked at Arbor from head to toe and sneered. "We want this carriage, and leave the coachman behind. We'll pay you 10 times the amount of spirit coins you paid for it." Her tone was arrogant, as if she was giving Arbor a huge favor. Chapter 3745. Give me back my black gold arrow. Arbor looked coldly at a stranger. That person stepped on her black gold arrow, and looked at her provocatively, laughing. "Little girl, you have quite a temper. How about it? Call me brother and I'll lift my leg." He had already felt it when he stepped on it. Although the arrow looked fierce, it did not have any spiritual energy attached to it. And now that he looked at the little girl, she looked like an ordinary person. Without any cultivation, he could crush this group of weak ants with a single finger. Why would he Wang Quan care about Arbor? Arbor smirked and looked coldly at the man in front of her. "You will die." Wang Quan's body trembled for no reason other than the fact that the little girl's eyes were too cold. When she looked at him, he felt as if all the blood in his body had been frozen. "Senior, why are you wasting your breath on this girl?" Lin Junner shouted. "A few useless people without any cultivation dare to speak to us cultivators like this? You're seeking your own death." As she spoke, 4 people rushed down from the mountain, all wearing the royal school uniform. When they saw the scene, they were slightly stunned. Another man who rode forward came to Wang Quan's side, and whispered to him. Wang Quan frowned and looked at the 4 students coming down from the mountain, then looked at Arbor and the others. "You're from the royal school? Were the royal school students here for training? However, why would the royal school only send ordinary people, who didn't even have the strength to truss up a chicken? Training for what? Training for what? Seeking death?" Thinking of this, Wang Quan could not help but laugh mockingly. He crossed his arms and taunted Arbor. "How about it, little girl? Have you thought it through? You won't lose out by calling me brother." Lin Junner spat at him and said, "Senior, we still have important things to do, don't waste time. Come here." With Arbor's order, The 4 royal school students who were originally standing behind Lin Jinner and the others suddenly understood the meaning of the order. He hurriedly ran over and rushed to the side of the carriage. At this time, Little Fatty and the others also got out of the car. They looked coldly at Wang Quan and the others who were courting death. "Are you looking down on people without cultivation?" Arbor looked at them coldly and said indifferently, "Without cultivation, I can still beat you like dogs." As soon as she finished speaking, Lin Jinner's eyes suddenly shrank. She suddenly realized that the soil and rocks in front of them were strangely rising from the ground and smashing towards them one by one. Bang! 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 Lin Jinner, Wang Quan, and the other 2 men cried out in shock as they threw out their palms and punched out at the rocks flying towards them. After piercing through a dozen rocks, Wang Quan was already forced to move his feet. The black gold arrow under his feet instantly flew up and returned to Arbor's hands. "Go to hell!" Arbor shouted coldly and threw out a round spiritual energy ball. The level 15 spiritual energy ball exploded among the 4 of them. After a loud bang, the 4 wheels of the carriage were immediately shaken and flew up, crashing onto Wang Quan and the others. Wang Quan, who bore the brunt of the impact, was immediately shaken by the spiritual energy and spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire body fell to the ground in defeat. All of a sudden, he felt his hair stand on end. Chapter 3746. Senior Brother. Lin Jinner screamed as a black gold arrow flew towards her senior brother's chest. Puff! Blood spurted out of his chest as he was pierced through and flew out from his back. Wang Quan's eyes widened in shock as he fell to the ground with a bang. "You overestimate yourself." Arbor's black hair flew in the wind as he looked coldly at Wang Quan like a demon from hell. Then, he jumped onto the carriage and said coldly to the coachman, "Let's go." The coachman did not dare to delay, as he quickly whipped the horse and drove the carriage away. Luckily, the carriage was spacious enough to accommodate the 8 people from Arbor and the other 4 students from the royal school. The 4 students from the royal school, who had hitched a ride and witnessed the exciting scene of Miss Chow killing people, immediately behaved themselves. After a long while, no one in the carriage dared to say anything. Everyone saw the cold expression on the little girl's face, as if she was not in a good mood, and could only look at each other. No one dared to open their mouths and provoke the little girl. The little fatty pretended to cough and then said in a low voice, "Chow, chow, chow. The person who was hit by the black gold arrow just now, he will die." Arbor said coldly, "The black gold arrow has the poison of the death flower on it. Just a little bit of flesh will cause his nerves to atrophy and die." Arbor looked back coldly. "He will die a very painful death." Everyone, Duan Muqing and the rest looked at Qi Xianxian and gestured with their chins. Qi Xianxian moved her small body and stealthily approached Qiao Qiao, who was covered in cold air. She carelessly touched the back of her hand. "Qiao Qiao, don't be angry." They all knew why Sir Jojo was so angry and wanted to kill. It was because those people saw them as ants. They felt that ordinary people were ants that could be bullied and humiliated as they wished. Although their family's Lord Qiao Qiao had a cold exterior, her heart was extremely soft. What she despised the most was those unruly people who relied on their high cultivation to bully ordinary people. If you have that kind of free time, wouldn't it be better for you to train and strengthen yourself? Even if you bully a group of powerless ants, so what? Can you show off your loftiness? It was too low end. Someone spoke up, and the atmosphere in the carriage became slightly better. One of the 4 royal school students stammered, "Grand Crown Princess, you just threw a level 15 spiritual energy ball?" That's right. Jojo had just thrown a level 15 spiritual energy ball. Everyone's gaze shifted to her backpack. Arbor took out a few divine power balls from his small bag and showed them to everyone. "I brought a lot. Don't worry. I can send anyone who wants to die back to their hometown." Everyone was speechless. Jojo, Sama was indeed a ruthless person. He brought a bag full of spiritual energy balls and divine power balls. Whoever came would be unlucky. At the same time, the figures of 2 royal school teachers appeared where Arbor had left. Looking at the mess in front of them, the 2 teachers looked at each other. Wang Quan's nerves had already atrophied, and his entire body was curled up in pain. However, after a few seconds he stopped breathing. His companions were shocked. In the chaos, they did not notice the sympathetic looks from the two teachers. Chapter 3747. Is the little crown princess cheating? One of the instructors could not help but mutter. The dean didn't say that she couldn't bring spirit energy balls or godly energy balls. The other instructor snorted heavily. As long as the weight doesn't exceed 3 liters, why would you care what she brings? That's true. The instructor thought that it made sense. After a moment of silence, he said, "Then Instructor Zhong, should we report this to the dean?" "Report my ass. They all have recording glyph arrays on them. Can't the instructors in the academy check and report it themselves?" They had been wandering around aimlessly outside the academy. It was already very tiring for them, all right? This Instructor Zhong was obviously a hot-tempered person. Whenever there was a disagreement, he would lash out at his partner. The other instructor nodded. Then he could not help but say, "But I feel that the way the little crown princess attacked him just now was a little strange. Wasn't her spiritual power sealed? But when the earth and rocks tumbled just now, the ground trembled along with it. There was no fluctuation of spirit energy." Instructor Zhong pondered for a moment. Then, he said with certainty, "It's definitely not against the rules." Even though the two of them had exceptional eyesight, they still couldn't figure it out. What had the young crown prince consort used to move the earth and rocks to attack people? Help, help. Lin Jun'er was completely panicking now. She shook Wang Quan, who was curled up on the ground, with all her might. She kept calling out, "Senior brother, senior brother." But Wang Quan was no longer breathing. Why would he bother with her? Lin Jun'er looked up at her companions. Zhao Yi and Chi Fa walked up with the same solemn expression. Zhao Yi lowered his head and reached out to turn Wang Quan over. Everyone looked at him with a shocked expression. Wang Quan's eyes bulged strangely. His entire body was twisted into a fried dough twist. He seemed to have suffered a great deal of pain. The way he died was very tragic. Lin Jun'er screamed and stumbled back a dozen steps. Her eyes were burning with hatred. She shouted, "It's her. It's that woman who killed senior brother Wang Quan. Immediately report this to the sect and ask them to send more people over. We must avenge senior brother Wang Quan. Junior sister Lin, don't act rashly. The fact that she was able to kill junior brother Wang in such a short period of time means that she is definitely not an ordinary person. So what if he's different from ordinary people?" Lin Jun'er shouted in exasperation. "Don't tell me you're not going to take revenge? Are you all scared out of your wits? She was a cripple without any spiritual energy. He only managed to escape by throwing a level 15 spiritual energy ball at us. If it weren't for the fact that we were completely defenseless against her, how could she have succeeded?" Lin Jun'er said angrily. "I don't care. Send a message to the sect right now and ask them to send more people over. That woman and that group of people, I won't let any of them off." "Oh, there's a smell of blood. Someone died here." A slow voice came down from the mountain path. Lin Jun'er and the others were stunned when they heard this and turned their heads to look. 8 men dressed in the uniform of the Royal Academy were slowly walking down the mountain path. The 3 men in the lead were tall and handsome. At a glance, they looked like handsome men who had walked out of a painting. Lin Jun'er's shifty eyes looked at their faces. She grinned and was about to step forward. Among them, a young and handsome man suddenly flashed and came to the edge of the pit created by the explosion of the level 15 spiritual energy ball. Chapter 3748. Zhao Yi, there's something wrong with this situation. Chi Fa creased his brows and whispered to his companion Zhao Yi. The Imperial Academy is renowned throughout the 3 provinces. Why are the Imperial Academy students we encountered today all people without spiritual energy cultivation? Zhao Yi wasn't a fool and had already noticed a clue. A glint flashed across his eyes. It seemed that the students of the royal school were going through a very special training. They weren't insignificant ants with meager strength. Their cultivations were only temporarily sealed, right? Otherwise, which normal person could casually take out such a thing? That level 15 spiritual energy ball, And that crow-gold arrow weren't ordinary items either. It appeared that they were blind and had brought trouble upon themselves. Zhao Yi creased his brows and exchanged glances with Chi Fa. Both of them were a bit depressed and stifled inside. If that girl who attacked them had informed them earlier that they were merely cultivators undergoing a special training, how could there have been such a huge commotion? Now they even had to pay with their junior brother Wang's life. Simply abominable. Interesting, you guys actually fought with Jojo before? After Duan Yu finished inspecting the large pit, he glanced at Wang Quan, who was dead on the side, and curled his lips mockingly. They understood Jojo's personality the best. If you ignored her, she would ignore you for a year if these people weren't courting death. Sir Jojo probably wouldn't even spare them a glance. Emolian, Mu Xingchen, and the others slowly descended from the mountain path and walked to Duan Yu's side. They indifferently glanced at Lin Zhen, and the others. Zhao Yi's heart inexplicably skipped a beat, and he glanced at Chi Fa guardedly. The two of them swiftly retreated a few steps and vigilantly looked at Duan Yu, Emolian, and the others. Zhen Zhao Yi, don't get into a conflict with others anymore. A gentle voice called out from inside the carriage. A young maidservant with a red scar on her face was respectfully supporting a frail and boneless young girl out of the damaged carriage with downcast eyes. That young girl was about 15 or 16 years old. She had a timid smile on her delicate face and a tear mole at the corner of her eye. Anyone who saw her would involuntarily feel tender affection for her. Little junior sister. Little junior sister. Lin Zhen Zhao Yi, and the others quickly went forward. Lin Zhen impatiently held her hand and smiled fawningly. Little junior sister, why did you get off the carriage? Xiao Shui greets everyone. The girl weakly curtsied towards Emolien's group of 8. Everyone glanced at them indifferently, and no one said anything. As if she felt insulted, Lin Zhen angrily glared at Emolien and the others. She was infuriated, as if saying how could they treat her little junior sister like this. Xiao Shui tugged on Lin Zhen's hand and nodded gently at Emolien and the others. Because our carriage broke down along the way, Zhen and the others were in a hurry to change it for me. That's why we had a small conflict with your academy students. Now that my senior brother lost his life because of this matter, I hope you won't pursue this matter further. Duan Yu pursed his lips noncommittally. Lian is leaving. Emolien glanced at the corpse on the ground and naturally didn't say anything. She turned around and left with Duan Yu. Lin Zhen couldn't help but tremble in anger when she saw their perfunctory attitude and extreme disrespect for her little junior sister. Chapter 3749. Just as she was about to berate them, junior sister Xiao Shui forcefully tugged at the corner of her clothes. Senior sister Lin, you can't. Don't quarrel and fight with others because of me. Proper business is more important. When Xiao Shui's gentle voice entered Lin Zhen and the others' ears, it successfully soothed the flames of fury in their hearts. Preposterous. Lin Zhen harumphed. Those men were all people who didn't know what was good for them. So what if it was the Imperial Academy? Could the Imperial Academy be nobler than their sex? Don't let me meet them again. Lin Zhen snorted. Next time, I won't let them off so easily. As Lin Zhen moved, she suddenly felt her foot step on something soft. The moment she lifted her foot, she was instantly sent flying by a huge force. With a loud bang, Zhao Yi, Chi Fa, and the others were also sent flying by the force of the explosion. While junior sister Xiao Shui's pupils contracted, the scar-faced maidservant beside her suddenly pressed against her body and firmly protected her in her arms. All of the force of the shock landed on that scar-faced maidservant and didn't affect Xiao Shui at all. Xiao Shui cried out in panic. Xiaoro, are you okay, Xiaoro? I am fine. The moment Xiaoro opened her mouth, she quickly turned her head and spat a mouthful of blood on the ground. Only then did it not affect her Mrs. Clean Clothes. Xiao Shui became even more alarmed, and her pupils constricted repeatedly. You're fine, 4th Mississippi. Xiaoro hastily comforted this delicate and lovely 4th Miss, and helped her up from the ground. On the other side, Emolien and the others, who were already far away, stopped in their tracks. Mata turned around to look at the blazing flames behind them, and couldn't help but be speechless. Your Highness Prince Chen, what did you throw there? Earth fire grenades. Duan Yu blinked and pursed his lips. Who doesn't know how to pretend to be weak? It's annoying just looking at it. The little stoic was more comfortable to look at. It was comfortable no matter how he looked at it. If pretending to be weak could brush things off, then he wouldn't be Duan Yu. And that person wouldn't be Mo Lien. What did you do? Duan Yu poked Mo Lien's arm. What did I do? Mo Lien looked back at him innocently. I didn't do anything. Save it. Duan Yu harumphed in disbelief. Mo Lien turned around and took out a sealing orb from her inventory and threw it on the ground. A flying spiritual artifact instantly appeared in front of everyone. Let's go. Everyone's spirits were roused, and they hurriedly dove into the air transportation spiritual tool. Don't tell me you're carrying a sack full of spirit and divine weapons? Duan Yu looked curiously at the bundle Mo Lien was carrying. Did you give it to Jojo? What did Jojo bring? Mu Xingchen asked anxiously. Jojo has more spiritual and divine weapons than I do. Mo Lien rolled his eyes before saying. She seems to have brought a bag of spiritual energy balls and divine energy balls. Everyone was speechless. Was this the rhythm of ascending to heaven? This little girl really wasn't easy to get along with. After the air transportation spiritual tool ascended to the sky, Mentor Zhong and the other mentor silently crept out of the forest and speechlessly watched the departing air transportation spiritual tool. This batch of students seems to have a lot of private property. Mentor Zhong shook his head exasperatedly. The dean didn't say we can't bring concealed weapons and spirit weapons. It shouldn't be considered cheating. Mentor Zhong, why do I feel like those people are a bit miserable? The two mentors looked at Lin Junner and the others and speechlessly rubbed their noses. Chapter 3750. Encountering Arbor's group, and being taught a lesson instead. Lin Junner and the rest were already unlucky enough. Who knew that they would bump into Mo Lien's group? Seeing Lin Junner and the rest crawling on the ground like bedbugs and unable to stand up, the two teachers couldn't help but look at them sympathetically. Who said that those without cultivation would be useless? In this world, as long as one had some assets, it was not impossible to rise up. I know what's going on. Teacher Zhong's eyes widened, and he suddenly let out a low growl. His face actually had traces of a surprised smile. He finally understood how the little girl launched the earth attack. This problem that had troubled him for more than 2 hours suddenly solved itself. Look at them. Their faces are flushed red and their bodies are sore. It's obvious that they couldn't get up even after crawling for a long time. It's not entirely because they were attacked by hidden weapons and were heavily injured. Then why is that, Teacher Zhong? It's the effect of the medicine. The medicine has seeped into their veins, and they are temporarily unable to recover. The Crown Prince and the rest are not a group of people who have no battle power at all. Teacher Zhong said excitedly. Among them, there is a hidden weapon master and a pharmacist hiding among them. Just like the little Crown Princess, the little Crown Princess is also a person with special abilities. The rolling earth just now was caused by her special ability. After the other teacher heard Teacher Zhong's analysis and explanation, he suddenly understood. No wonder. That's why sealing the little Crown Princess's spiritual power and consciousness is far from enough to make her lose all her battle power. She's a psychokinesis special ability user. The two teachers exclaimed. The little Crown Princess and the rest who were being nagged by the two teachers were now heading towards the direction of the Phoenix Forest. With the spirit stallion pulling the carriage, although it could not be compared to a flying spirit weapon, it was still many times faster than walking. In the afternoon of the next day, the group finally reached the outskirts of the Phoenix Forest and heaved a sigh of relief. The 4 Royal School students who had hitched a ride jumped off the carriage and hurriedly went forward to thank them. Students, thank you for hitching a ride with us. Everyone, let's part ways here. We still need to wait for our other companions. You guys can go ahead first. Duan Muqing nodded and bid farewell to little Fatty and the others as well as his 4 schoolmates. Then, he turned around and asked the driver to drive the carriage back. Chao Chi took out his identity card and showed it to everyone. The time on his back had now become 108. Fuck this countdown. Little Fatty muttered. Let's enter the forest now. Qi Xianxian turned her head and looked at the 4 students standing at the entrance of the forest. She sighed sadly. These 4 are indeed very smart. Arbor smirked. Little Fatty asked blankly. What do you mean? Jiang Shaoxin laughed heartily. He raised his hand and patted the little Fatty on the head. What I mean is, if these 4 guys follow us into the Phoenix Forest, we can immediately rob them of their rubies and get 40 points. As long as he stepped into the Phoenix Wood Forest, he would be able to embark on a great career of robbery. However, these 4 guys obviously had brains. They purposely found an excuse to wait outside the Phoenix Wood Forest for a long time, waiting for them to leave before entering the forest. At that time, in the huge Phoenix Wood Forest, if they wanted to meet again, it would depend on luck and luck. Little Fatty looked at them in shock. His gaze turned away from Arbor and the others. Chapter 3751. You all of you. All of you. Fatty's mouth was agape as he looked at his friends in shock. So all of you are like this. Don't tell me all of you have the same idea? Of course. Qi Xianxian rolled her eyes at him. Did you think Jojo would be so kind as to pull in 4 of his classmates? Everyone was speechless. Duanmu Qing's mouth twitched involuntarily. Xiaomu pridefully turned her small head and expressionlessly walked into the forest, a light harumph coming from her small nose. Since their intentions had been seen through, then forget it. Seeing that they were all smart people, he would let them live for a few more days. Qi Xianxian giggled and quickly caught up to Xiaomu's pace. Xiao, don't be angry. After we enter the forest later, we'll find a place to wait. If we see people coming, we'll knock them out and then snatch their rubies. As she spoke, Qi Xianxian opened her small mouth, revealing 2 sparkling small front teeth. She looked a little wretched. Arbor glanced at her. Let's find the herbs to make the antidote for the ceiling pill. There were ready-made herbs on Planet Forest that could be used. However, this was a special time. If she randomly took out a few herbs, the teachers in front of the viewing screen would definitely notice. If they judged that she was cheating, then it would be game over. When everyone entered the Phoenix Forest, their bodies suddenly tensed up, and they instinctively dodged in all directions. Fatty kicked Xiao Shudai, who was caught off guard behind a tree. At the same time, there were a few arrows stuck in the bushes where they originally stood. Brothers, let's go. Following a shout, 8 agile and vigorous male students leaped out from their hiding spots in the underbrush and flew toward Xiaomu and the others. They did not expect to be ambushed by their schoolmates the moment they entered the forest. Qi Xianxian could not help but roll her eyes. This bunch of idiots, were they really stupid? They could have provoked anyone, but they actually dared to provoke their Jojo. Just wait and see, hand over your ruby. Nerd Chow was so scared that he crawled from behind the tree to the chubby boy's side. He covered his pocket with his hand and said, "What should I do? We've been surrounded." Lu Yu poked his head out from behind the tree and asked loudly, "Brother, what team are you from? Tell me your name if you have the guts." Do you think we're afraid of you? Our team will never change our name. We're a team of heroes." The corners of everyone's mouths twitched. What heroic team? I'll beat you into a pulp. Arbor expressionlessly took out a small round bamboo tube from his pocket and threw it over. After a pop sound, a thick smoke suddenly came out of the bamboo tube. Lu Yu and the others were already prepared. When the bamboo tubes were thrown out, they covered their mouths and noses. As a result, the 8 members of the heroic team were immediately choked by the thick smoke and coughed violently. After a few bangs, none of the 8 members of the heroic team were spared, and they all fell to the ground. Fatty was the first to roll out from behind the tree while covering his mouth and nose. He stomped on a male student under his feet twice. "How dare you rob our Seacombe Planet battle team? How dare you show off your heroic team? I'll beat you into a pulp. You cheated." The members of the heroic team laid on the ground with bitter resentment. Their bodies and legs were all stepped on, and everyone's faces instantly turned green. "Cheated my ass." Fatty raised his fist and slapped the back of the heroic team's captain's head. Chapter 3752. You have hidden weapons on you. Using hidden weapons on you. What's wrong with hidden weapons? When did the dean say that hidden weapons are not allowed? Little Fatty grumpily searched the bodies of the students. He quickly searched the 8 people's bodies for rubies and grinned at them proudly. Heh, 80 points. I'll spare your lives, and I won't give up your identity tokens. The 8 of them from Team Hero looked sorrowful. What kind of good intentions could this grandson have? If they didn't lose their identity tokens, they would continue to wander around the Phoenix Wood Forest and search for their rubies. Sir Jojo expressionlessly walked forward and glanced at the 8 pitiful people on the ground. The 8 students suddenly stared with wide eyes and exclaimed, "Crown Princess? Damn! How could it be the Crown Princess?" Just now they only noticed that a team wearing the academy uniform had entered, and didn't even see who it was before they attacked. If they knew it was this little fiend, they wouldn't have been able to escape in time. Why would they seek their own deaths by coming forward? Woo 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 woo. Arbor collected the bows and arrows scattered on the ground, and threw them to Little Fatty and the rest. The group of people left the group of unlucky fellows behind, and were about to continue walking into the Phoenix Wood Forest. Little Fatty's head was filled with black lines as he carried the fainted Chao Chi out from behind the tree. This bookworm fainted. Arbor walked to Chao Shu's side, and took out a small bottle, and swept it under his nose. Chao Shu slowly woke up. What happened to me? Did I faint from the fog just now? Everyone rolled their eyes in unison. That fog will only make people unable to move. It won't cause them to faint. Arbor expressionlessly said. You just knocked into the tree and fainted. Chao Shu suddenly touched his head and cried out. No wonder there's a big bump here. Let's go pick the herbs first. Arbor's mouth twitched, and turned to walk into the depths of the forest. He had to remove the sealing pill on his body first, so that he could scam people faster. Wasn't it? Hey, fellow students, don't go. Hey. The 8 members of the heroic team lay on the ground and cried out pitifully. Arbor looked back at them and took out a piece of powder from his fingertips. It will automatically unravel in half an hour. Chao Shudai excitedly followed behind the group, chattering nonstop. The Crown Princess is so powerful. Even if she doesn't have any cultivation, she can still use medicine to knock people down. That's right, don't you know whose Jojo it is? Qi Xianxian smiled proudly. This Phoenix Wood Forest is so big. Jojo, where should we go to gather the herbs? Arbor was also rather helpless. Now that she couldn't use any of her methods, she could only go wherever she wanted in such a large Phoenix Wood Forest. How could she know where the herbs she needed would appear in the Phoenix Wood Forest? Let's see our luck. Arbor said indifferently. Let's go and see. Hearing the word luck, Qi Xuanxuan's whole body shook and she laughed. That's great. In terms of luck, Jojo had never lost to anyone before. Qi Xianxian, Little Fatty and the rest instantly relaxed. Arbor had a strange expression on his face as he silently glanced at the group. He didn't quite understand why they all had such relaxed expressions. Jojo, we have great confidence in you, Qi Xianxian said. Your face is whiter than anyone else's. I feel that if we take another 2 steps forward, we will be able to see the herbs. Sir Jojo laughed in response. Chapter 3753. The training teams in Phoenix Wood Forest were very dense, especially in the periphery. They could see all kinds of training teams passing by, and among them, there were a few very valiant mercenary teams. Arbor's group of 8 was very eye-catching. Every team that passed by couldn't help but take a few more glances at them. The main reason was that the 8 of them looked very weak, and there wasn't a trace of spiritual energy on their bodies. For a normal team without spiritual energy to dare to trespass into a dangerous place like Phoenix Wood Forest, it really made people look at them in a new light. Due to the big bump on his head, Chao Shudai found a red bandage with the word struggle written on it and wrapped it around his forehead. Every time Sir Jojo turned his head and saw the word struggle on his forehead, he couldn't help but quickly look away and unconsciously quicken his pace. Qi Xianxian secretly laughed, glanced at Chao Shudai and asked, How long will it take to get to the nearest supply point? It'll take about 2 hours to get there on foot. Chao Qi calculated the time, raised his head and answered, I suggest that we don't go to that supply point first. We haven't consumed much, and we can't resupply even if we go there. We should find the herbs to cure the ceiling pill as soon as possible. Chao Chi paused, and his eyes suddenly lit up. Student Xianxian, you mean that we should go to the supply point to buy the herbs? Qi Xianxian nodded, and secretly glanced at Arbor. Jojo, what do you think? Very good. Sir Jojo's eyes also lit up slightly. Arbor had long been used to asking Qiuqiu for the herbs, or using his divine sense to travel through the star field to pick them up. Even she didn't think of this. Going directly to the supply point to buy the herbs they needed. This way they could refine the antidote as soon as possible. Since they wouldn't waste too much time, they decided to go to the nearest fortification first. According to Chao Chi, there were a total of 3 supply points in Phoenix Wood Forest, and the prices of the things inside were of course very expensive. After all, this place was very far from the city, and the average team would come here to resupply with food, water, and other things. The cost was indeed not cheap. By the time Arbor's party of 8 arrived at the supply point, it was already 10 in the afternoon. This small fortification was surrounded by a row of sharpened bamboo fences. The center was divided into 2 areas, the rest area and the merchandise area. When Arbor's team entered, they attracted the attention of several teams in the resting area. The sturdy men who were originally sitting around a table playing Pai Gao all turned their heads around at this time, and their gazes landed on Xiao Mu's group. Their eyes flickered rapidly as they sized them up. Qi Xianxian walked over to the medicinal herbs section of the goods section and lightly patted the counter, waking up an old man who was dozing off inside. Hey, uncle, you can order medicinal herbs here, right? The old man was startled by the voice, and he opened his eyes slightly to look at Qi Xianxian. He opened his mouth and yawned. Young lady, what medicinal herbs do you want to order? I won't place an order for anything below 1,000 spirit coins. He yawned again and raised his head lazily. He squinted his eyes and looked at Arbor and the others behind Qi Xianxian. Arbor threw him a piece of paper with the names of the medicinal herbs written on it. I want these medicinal herbs. Give me 8 portions of each. A light flashed through the old man's eyes. Chapter 3754. Little girl, 8 sets of the herbs you want are not cheap. The old man looked at her with a smile. Also, I only have 2 sets of herbs on hand. If you want 8 sets, I will need about a day to get someone to prepare them. Then give me 2 sets first. Arbor said indifferently. The old man laughed. 2 sets of herbs for 6,000 spirit coins. Qi Xianxian could not help but be speechless. This old man was really amazing. 2 sets of herbs to refine the unsealing pill were sold for 6,000 spirit coins. Xiao Mu did not waste her breath on him, and nodded before looking up at Bookworm Chow on the side. Bookworm looked pained, but he did not hesitate. When he saw Arbor looking at him, he took out money from his pocket. After counting the 6,000 spirit coins, Bookworm stuttered and said honestly, This old man, the money is here. Please prepare the herbs for us. All right. The old man tidied up the coins on the counter and nodded with a smile on his face. Wait for 2 minutes. I will go and get the herbs. All right, do you want the other 6 sets of herbs? If you want them, I can give you a discount. How much discount? Little Fatty asked with a pained expression. 9% discount. Everyone was speechless. You damn old man. Don't you feel guilty when you say that? If it were not for the fact that we were too lazy to wander around the Phoenix Forest looking for herbs, we would not have let a greedy old man like you take advantage of us. Everyone turned their gazes towards Lady Jojo. Arbor looked directly at Bookworm Chow's money bag. Is it enough? Bookworm Chow nodded with a pained expression. Arbor turned to look at the old man. Prepare the remaining 6 sets of herbs. We will come and get them tomorrow at this time. Okay. The old man took the money and was very straightforward. Little girl, don't worry. This old man will prepare the other 6 sets of herbs tomorrow at this time. I promise I will not waste your time. Arbor nodded slightly. All of a sudden, a fair hand reached out and slapped the counter in front of the old man. We want these 2 sets of medicinal ingredients. I'll give you 7,000 spirit coins. The old man's eyes instantly lit up. He put down the half-counted spirit coins on the counter and looked at the fair palm. He saw a woman with heavy makeup and a lot of gold hairpins in her hair. Qi Xianxian turned around to take a look. She was so angry that her nose was almost crooked. Princess Xiangchang, are you crazy? Can't you see that we've already bought these herbs? The shop owner hasn't even taken out the item. How can you be the one who bought it? Let the shop owner decide. Don't tell me you haven't heard of the principle that the highest bidder wins? Ah, that's right. People like you who came from the Middle Realm rarely see something like a medicinal herb auction. I want to bid with you now. Don't you dare to accept? Princess Xiangchang raised her chin arrogantly with a provocative smile. Arbor looked at her coldly. How could this Xiangchang commandery princess be so annoying? Previously, when she was a little mink, this woman was not even willing to let her, a little mink, go. Now, she actually came to find trouble with her. She was simply tired of living. If it were not for the academy's rule, that students were not allowed to seriously injure their own classmates, she would have fed her a divine power ball and gotten rid of this annoying woman. What do you say? Arbor's cold gaze shifted to the old man with a strange smile. Chapter 3755. The old man narrowed his eyes cunningly and said with a smile, "This old man is a businessman. Naturally, I will sell it to whoever offers the highest price." Arbor chuckled coldly. The old man's words clearly indicated that he was going to go back on his word. They had already paid the money at the counter, but now they were saying that they were not selling. How audacious! Sure enough, there were unscrupulous merchants everywhere in this small fortification in Phoenix Grove. Chao Shu pitifully clutched his money pouch tightly. Because of the weight issue, the academy clearly stated that spirit coin cards were not allowed to be used. Everyone's spirit coins would be counted into the weight they were carrying. Take out your money. At Princess Xiangchang's command, 3 male students came forward and took out spirit coins from their pockets. Arbor glanced at them and vaguely remembered the 3 of them. Qi Xianxian, who was at the side, could not help but shout. She pointed at a man with a mustache and said angrily, "Zheng He Huang Qishan Su Fugui. So it's you guys." These 3 senior students were all illustrious figures in the academy. Usually, they would cheat freshmen of their contribution points, force freshmen to compete with them, and rob them of their contribution points. There was nothing they wouldn't do. When Qi Xianxian saw them, her eyes widened in anger, and she roared in exasperation. It turned out that they were habitual offenders who were used to robbing others of their things. "I'm sorry, Student Xiao and Student Xianxian." Zheng He stroked his mustache and nodded at Arbor's group with a grin. At this moment, another girl walked forward and patted Princess Xiangchang's shoulder. She frowned and said, "Xiangchang, there's no need for this. Since the crown princess and her group arrived here first, why don't we split the medicinal herbs equally with each of them? In these 2 groups, there would be 1 member who could recover their cultivation. This way, they would not completely offend the crown princess and her group." Crown princess? However, when the old seller heard how the girl addressed her, his eyes became slightly vigilant. He turned his wrinkled old face and sized up Arbor and the others again. The little girl was wearing a snow-white academy uniform. Her attire was exactly the same as the people around her, but her cold and elegant appearance surpassed everyone present. When the same clothes were worn by different girls, there would be no harm if there was no comparison. However, he would be a fool if he didn't earn the money. Although the old man didn't know where this crown princess came from, since her status was so high, she shouldn't be poor. His eyes darted around. At this moment, he could already tell that these should be students from some academy. Due to some special reason, they urgently needed these medicinal herbs. This was a great opportunity to make money. "Little girl, I only have these 2 sets of herbs now. If you need them, you can." The old man smiled at Arbor. His meaning was obvious. If you need it, you may as well increase the price. Arbor coldly glanced at the old man. The old man instantly felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar, and a chill suddenly appeared in his heart. This little girl looked a bit scary. She definitely had the aura of a superior. The old man's heart thumped. Could it be that he had offended some great person? However, he immediately comforted himself and calmed down. One had to know that there weren't any members of the royal family training in the Phoenix Forest. Chapter 3756. There were only small training teams, and what everyone cared about was not status, but strength and cultivation. Of course, those with strength and cultivation had the status of a boss in Phoenixwood Forest. As for the others, who could you blame for your low cultivation? Thinking of this, the old man calmed down. How is it? This young lady is now bidding 7,000 spirit coins. Xiangchang region princess looked provocatively at Arbor in front of her. She completely ignored the woman in the team, who was trying to mediate. She even shrugged her shoulders and flung the woman's hand away. She was a citizen of Tsang province, and did not need to beg for food under the hands of the people from the divine continent. Therefore, she was not afraid of this crown princess who made everyone's expression change. Every time she saw her big brother Ali talking to this little crown princess with a smile, she could not stop her heart from palpitating and twitching. It was so uncomfortable that it felt like countless ants were gnawing at her heart. That was her big brother Ali, and he had never spoken to her. However, when facing this little grand concubine in front of her, he had a completely different attitude. It was simply infuriating. What a fickle woman. She already had such an outstanding person like the crown prince of the divine continent, yet she still dared to flirt around and throw flirtatious glances at men. If others knew what Xiangchang region princess was thinking, they would definitely tell her with a sincere face. You should go see an ophthalmologist. This young lady was always expressionless when facing anyone, okay? Where did you get the idea that she would throw flirtatious glances at men? Arbor did not even bother to look at that foolish region princess, and directly said to Chao Shudai, "Give him 8,000. When she regained her strength, she would definitely give each of them a generous gift. 9,000. Give him 10,000. Arbor's face was so gloomy that it was somewhat terrifying. 20,000. Give him 20,000. 30,000. As the price soared rapidly, Huang Qishan and the other two could not take it anymore, and looked at Xiangchang region princess. Arbor and the others naturally recognized the woman, who suggested to split the herbs equally. That was the Qin family's Qin Vane. At this moment, she was staring coldly at Xiangchang region princess, who was raising the price with Arbor, with a very disapproving gaze. She really couldn't understand how there could be such a pig-headed woman in this world. Now that time was limited, they were able to reach Phoenix Grove so quickly, because they had a flying spirit artifact. Now, shouldn't he take advantage of the fact that most of the students haven't arrived at Phoenixwood Forest to save time, and quickly finish the discussion with the others, and buy a set of herbs to start refining? It's really pointless for you to be chattering away with people like this, especially when he had offended someone like the little crown princess. If the little crown princess were to hold a grudge against them, it would be their unlucky day after the competition. Qinwen couldn't help but sigh. It was indeed a motley crew. She actually didn't want to join this crew at all. If it wasn't for the fact that she and her seventh brother didn't know how to refine medicine, how could they have joined this brainless team of Xiangchang? Big brother and second brother seemed to have been prepared. They had already joined the team and left. After discussing with her fifth and seventh brothers, she reluctantly formed a partnership with Xiangchang's group. In any case, this was only the preliminaries. With their abilities, it wouldn't be a problem for them to get a team with a total of 2,000 points. Even if they had to drag these burdens along, she would accept it. However, she didn't expect that the competition had just begun, and Xiangchang had already started arguing with others. Qinwen turned around in annoyance. Chapter 3757. Qin Qigong, Ziqin, and Xiangchang walked up with a grin, and silently glanced at Arbor's group without saying anything. Seventh brother, can you persuade that woman? Qinwen lowered her voice and asked. It had to be said that Xiangchang, this good-looking dog, had been very docile and gentle towards 5th Qin and 7th Qin Sir along the way. After all, 5th young Sir and 7th young Sir had both inherited the excellent looks of the Qin estate's ancestors, and each had their own handsome aspects. Xiangchang would subconsciously lower his voice in front of the two young masters, who were as beautiful as flowers. 7th young Sir Qin winked at Qinwen with a smile, and a faint smile slid across his handsome face. Sister One, don't be nervous. I believe that Commandery Princess Xiangchang isn't an unreasonable person. She's doing this for the good of our team. Fifth young Sir Qin stood on the side with an apathetic expression and gazed at the young crown princess with a somewhat complicated gaze. It seemed that wherever this girl went, she could create a pile of trouble out of thin air. However, he wasn't in any position to say anything. After all, he was just an ordinary person who had no choice but to bring along a burden in the team. He just had to mind his own business. And at this time, the bid had already reached the astronomical price of 500,000 spirit coins. The old man behind the counter was already grinning from ear to ear, and his entire face seemed to be glistening with oil. 510,000? Arbor coldly blurted out. A strange luster rapidly flashed across Commandery Princess Xiangchang's face, and she pursed her small lips and said with a faint smile, "Crown Princess, don't puff yourself up at your own cost. Can your companion have 510,000 spirit coins in his pocket? Does little Qi have it?" Arbor asked indifferently. Our dear Chao Qi clutched his pocket, looking like he was about to cry. In less than a second, he nodded vigorously like a hero dying for a cause. Commandery Princess Xiangchang's pretty face was cold, and a strange light flashed across her eyes. 800,000? Wow, 800,000 spirit coins. Is this girl crazy? 2 sets of medicinal ingredients actually sold for 800,000 spirit coins. Fuck, old man Qi really made a killing this time. I'll go. This is equivalent to a month's surplus of our small supply point. That's right, old Qi. Where did you run into such a lucky bastard? The shopkeeper, who was called Old Qi too, was grinning from ear to ear. He really didn't expect that the 2 sets of ordinary medicinal ingredients today could be sold at such a shocking price. Arbor turned and left without another word. Her movements were very fast, and her expression was very cold and indifferent. For a moment, the people who were in high spirits were completely unable to react. Naturally, Qi Xianxian and the others were the quickest to react. When Jojo took a step forward, all the members immediately turned around and followed her small steps. The complacent look on Princess Xiangchang's face suddenly froze. How could this be? Half of her face turned pale, while the other half turned green. It felt good to bid, but it felt even better to pay. Now that the price had risen to a sky-high price of 800,000 spirit coins, Huang Qishan and the other 2, as well as their companion Guishuan, could barely gather 800,000 spirit coins. This wasn't her original intention. At this moment, she was indeed hoping that the little crown princess would bid another 810,000 spirit coins. She had already thought of an excuse to ruthlessly mock her later, such as, "You're a retard. Only a fool would spend 810,000 spirit coins to buy these lousy medicinal ingredients." Chapter 3758. Another example was, there are plenty of low-level common herbs like this in Phoenix Wood Forest. You can probably find all of them in a day. Only an idiot would spend so much money to buy them like you. But now, the little crown princess actually turned around and left without saying a word? The instant Xiangchang Commandery Princess froze on the spot. The people from the Qin estate took in her strange expression and couldn't help but sigh. With Xiangchang's intelligence, how could she compare with the shrewd little crown princess? Wouldn't that be an absolute crushing victory? Xiangchang Commandery Princess shouted sternly, "Stop right there. Arbor, stop right there. Why aren't you buying anymore? Why aren't you bidding?" Everyone was baffled and looked at each other in dismay. Arbor stopped and turned his small face slightly. His expression was apathetic, and his eyes were calm as he looked at the exasperated woman without any ripples. "Do you think everyone is as retarded as you? Buy it yourself for 800,000 and properly concoct the medicine. I hope you can refine 2 pills in a day. I wish you good luck." "Ah!" Xiangchang Commandery Princess screamed, her beautiful eyes reflecting the departing figures of Arbor and the others. Qinwen sighed heavily. She seriously doubted whether it would be better to team up with 5th brother and 7th brother now. Would they really have any hope in the next few days if they found such an unreliable alchemist? Qinwen sighed deeply and helped that retarded Commandery Princess pay the 800,000 spirit coins, finally obtaining 2 sets of extremely expensive herbs. Everyone hated that they couldn't shoot holes in those 2 sets of herbs with their gazes. Forget it, we've already bought them. Qin Wen sighed again and said to Xiangchang Commandery Princess, let's find a place to let the Commandery Princess settle down and properly refine pills. Commandery Princess, please draw a list of herbs for us. 7th brother and I will follow the list of herbs and continue to search for herbs in Phoenix Wood Forest tomorrow. The others will stay there to protect Xiangchang and 5th brother. This arrangement was already very good, because they didn't have the other 800,000 spirit coins to buy the remaining few sets of herbs, so they could only go out and search for them themselves. They hadn't walked far after exiting the supply point, when 7th young Master Qin's hair suddenly stood on end, and he reflexively shouted, "Be careful!" He didn't care about the others, and hid behind a tree. Qin Wen also reacted swiftly, grabbing 5th young Master Qin, and pressing him behind another tree. At the same time, dozens of arrows whizzed towards Huang Qishan and the others. The arrowheads all avoided the students' heads, necks, chests, and other important body parts. Instead, they were aimed at the students' limbs and buttocks. Huang Qishan and the others, who were already defenseless, fell to the ground under the rain of arrows. 7th young Master Qin, who was hiding behind a tree, couldn't help twitching his mouth. After a crisp cry, the young Crown Prince Consort abruptly jumped down from the tree and waved her hand forcefully. Little Fatty and the others then swarmed over like a swarm of bees, grabbing onto Huang Qishan and the others who were lying on the ground and trampling on them. Qi Xuanxuan's lungs were about to explode from anger because of Xiangchang Commandery Princess just now. Now, she seized the opportunity and rushed over without a second word, slapping Xiangchang's charming face twice before fiercely stomping on her buttocks. Xiangchang fell to the ground headfirst, while the other was like a dog gnawing on mud. His front teeth almost fell out. Qi Xianxian was so angry that she rolled up her sleeves and fiercely stomped on her 2 feet. If it weren't for the fact that little Fatty was worried about taking someone's life and hurriedly stopped her, Qi Xianxian would have stomped on her 2 more times. Search. Chapter 3759. At the young Crown Princess's command, all the team members pounced on Huang Qishan, Su Fugui, Zhong He, Gui Xuan and Xiangchang Region Princess. After beating them up, they searched for their identity tablets and rubies. Medicinal herbs worth 800,000 spirit coins were stored in 2 very simple wooden boxes. After they were found, they were placed in front of Arbor by the team members. Arbor looked at them expressionlessly. He took out a small pouch from his waist and let the team members throw in the 5 identity tablets. Xiangchang Region Princess's face was bruised and swollen. She was so angry that her face was distorted. She shrieked, "Arbor, you actually dared to beat up your classmates. You violated the rules of the competition. Do you all want to withdraw from the competition?" Qi Xianxian rushed up and gave her a punch. "So what if we hit you? We're hitting you because you're a troublemaker. Shameless thing. You think you're so great just because you have some stinky money. We've followed the rules of the competition completely. Snatching the rubies from you is one of the rules of the competition. We didn't injure you heavily or kill you. How is that against the rules?" That's right, that's right. Xiangchang Region Princess was so angry that her eyes were about to burst into flames. Shameless people. These people were really vile, especially that woman Arbor. They had raised the price of the medicinal herbs to 800,000, but she actually didn't want to buy it. After making them spend a large sum of money to buy the medicinal herbs, she actually came to snatch it openly. Who was shameless? Who was the shameless one? Jojo. Those 3 from the Qin family seemed to have run away. Duan Muqing and Lu Yu circled around the vicinity and didn't find any traces of the 2 young masters of the Qin family and Qin Wen. If they didn't run away, were they waiting to be beaten up and have their identity tablets taken away? Arbor glanced back and nodded coldly. Don't bother about them. Let's go. Everyone nodded and left the few guys who had been flattened to the point where their faces looked like pig heads. Xiangchang Region Princess cursed incessantly. She shouted at the top of her lungs at Arbor's departing figures. If you have the guts, stay and have a fair fight. Don't do such sneaky things that only despicable people would do. Qi Xuanxuan's eyes flashed with anger. She turned around and pounced back. She picked up Xiangchang Commandery Princess, who was shouting nonstop, and gave her a good beating. In the end, he even picked up a ball of mud and threw it directly into her mouth. After finishing everything, Xian clapped her hands and snorted. She then turned around and ran back to Arbor. Princess Xiangchang was almost crippled. She lay on the ground with resentment in her eyes. She glared in the direction of Arbor and his men. 2 minutes later, 2 academy teachers appeared beside them and said, "Students, you have lost your identity cards, which means that you have lost the right to participate in the competition. From now on, you can leave Phoenix Grove and return to the academy on your own." After saying that, he threw a porcelain bottle into Guishuan's hand. "This is the antidote. Go back immediately after eating it." Guishuan, Huang Qishan, and the others looked gloomy. They didn't expect that they would be forced to give up the competition so soon after they stepped into Phoenix Grove. That damned Arbor. It was all because of him that they lost the right to participate in the competition. Xiangchang Commandery Princess shrieked. "Teachers, didn't you see it just now? Arbor, it was Arbor who plotted against us. He's simply too shameless." Chapter 3760. She lured us into spending a large sum of money to bid for those 2 sets of medicinal herbs, then led her team members to set up a trap to ambush us. She snatched the medicinal herbs that we spent an astronomical sum to buy, and she even snatched our identity tablets and rubies. "Instructors, you have to uphold justice for us." Xiangchang Commandery Princess shrieked. The 2 instructors stared at Xiangchang Commandery Princess, as if they were looking at an idiot for a long time before saying, "Doesn't this just show that the overall intelligence and strength of Seacombe Planet's team are above yours? What do you think this is? This is a competition, not a game. The battle started as soon as you entered Phoenix Grove. You are classmates, but you are also enemies. The rules are that you can snatch each other's rubies. There's nothing wrong with what they did. Moreover, they didn't cause any substantial injuries to your bodies." The 2 instructors glanced at Xiangchang Commandery Princess and her team, and their mouths couldn't help but twitch as they forcibly suppressed the laughter in their eyes. Although the little crown princess and her team didn't cause any serious injuries to these people, this was too much of a slap in the face. Almost all the injuries were imprinted on their faces, and their faces were swollen like a pig's head. It was completely unbearable to look at. "Ah!" Xiangchang Commandery Princess shrieked, and snatched the medicine bottle from Guishuan's hand with an indignant expression. She poured out an antidote and swallowed it. "I won't let her off so easily." A cold glint exploded in Xiangchang Commandery Princess's eyes. "Since she dared to treat me like this, she should know what kind of ending awaits her." Xiangchang Commandery Princess suddenly turned around, and a trace of spiritual force erupted from her entire body. With a whoosh, she chased in the direction of Arbor and the others. "Oh no!" The 2 instructors were shocked and couldn't help but exclaim. Xiangchang wants to rely on her newly recovered cultivation to crush the little crown princess and her team. This was seriously too shameless. Xiangchang Commandery Princess and her team had already lost the right to compete. According to the rules, they would be given the antidote and allowed to return to the academy on their own. The 2 instructors didn't expect Xiangchang Commandery Princess to be so daring. After swallowing the antidote and recovering her spiritual force in front of them, she actually dared to immediately rush to find trouble with the other students? Although the little crown princess and her team's archery skills were top-notch, they were considered to be quite strong among ordinary people. However, Princess Xiangchang had recovered her spiritual power. Although Xiangchang was an alchemist, her cultivation level was not very high. Yet when a 5th-level spirit master with a 5th-level Ling Fire faced a group of normal people, they would absolutely crush them. These 2 mentors had always been wandering around the Phoenix Woods. Naturally, they were not like Mentor Zhong, who was familiar with the power of the little crown princess. At this moment, Princess Xiangchang stretched out her hand to summon her spiritual beast, the three-colored spiritual magpie. She jumped on it and went straight in the direction of the little crown princess. Suddenly, he knew that this was bad. He hurriedly summoned his spirit beast and mounted it. Then he quickly chased in that direction. Guishuan and the others looked at each other in shock. After swallowing the antidote, they looked at each other in dismay. "Should we go over and take a look?" Huang Qishan asked. Their entire team was now in a state of disintegration. The three people from the Qin estate only cared about running away when danger approached. As for the rest of them, Xiangchang Commandery Princess went crazy after taking the medicine and went to find trouble with the young crown princess. Should they go with Xiangchang or return to the academy obediently? A trace of deep resentment flashed across Guishuan's eyes. Chapter 3761. Previously, he was only dissatisfied with the stoic face, but now, he truly hated this little stoic. This little stoic always came out to ruin his plans. Previously, she opposed him time and time again, and it was even more so for Zhongli Jiwei's matter. If it weren't for this stoic face's interference, he definitely could have saved Zhongli Jiwei and become a hero praised by everyone. But now, everyone only looked at him strangely when they mentioned him and Zhongli Jiwei. After all, he was the one who withdrew his hand and ran off by himself, resulting in Miss Zhongli's complete death. People were like this. They wouldn't remember how hard he tried to save Miss Zhongli. They would only remember that he, Guishuan, let go and completely abandoned the pitiful Miss Zhongli. His reputation had long been tarnished because of this matter. Now, after that stoic face's interference, he, Guishuan, was reduced to the first batch of people to be eliminated in the heaven-ranking preliminaries. He would definitely become the laughingstock of the entire Dragon Flame City when he returned. How could he accept this? In any case, he, Guishuan, was one of Dragon Flame City's young talents, one of the top talents in the entire Gu clan. But he didn't expect that he would be quickly eliminated after this stoic face's torment. He even lost the right to participate in the heaven ranking. In the future, when others mentioned him, they would definitely show disdain and ridicule him for not even being able to obtain a spot in the final round. Damn it! Now that Xiangchang had recovered her cultivation and chased after them, she definitely wouldn't let the stoic faces group have it easy. How could he not rush over to watch the show? It was always good to see the damn little stoic suffer. If Princess Xiangchang accidentally killed this damned stoic face, she would definitely kill him. A trace of cold anger flashed through Guishuan's eyes. It would be even better if she died. Young Master Mog Gu, do you want to follow them and take a look? Huang Qishan's eyes flashed as he looked in Guishuan's direction. Guishuan got up without saying a word and chased in the direction of Xiangchang. Her intention was very clear. Huang Qishan and the others immediately followed. In reality, they were also very unconvinced. They hadn't even recovered their cultivation and hadn't been able to display their invincible might in Phoenix Woods before they were eliminated. Even they couldn't accept such an outcome. After all, the few of them were considered to be above average among the older students in the academy. Before the preliminaries, their goal was to obtain a position in the top 50 of the preliminaries. Who would have thought? Out of the 1,700 teams in the academy, they were the first to be eliminated. Guishuan, Huang Qishan, and the others chased after Princess Xiangchang. Of course, Xiangchang was completely unaware of it. At this moment, she couldn't care about anything else. Her entire heart and eyes were filled with anger. She wanted to kill someone. Regardless of the rules, regardless of the academy's system, he only wanted to kill the stoic face in front of him to vent his hatred. She turned a deaf ear to the shouts of the two teachers who were chasing after her. Xiangchang Commandery Princess swallowed a medicinal pill that could temporarily increase her combat strength, increasing her strength to the maximum level of a level 8 spiritual master. With a flick of his finger, he fed his three-colored spirit magpie a speed-increasing pill as well. Damn you, Arbor! Your time of death has come. Tremble and repent. Who told you to offend someone you shouldn't have? Since Princess Xiangchang dared to do this, she had even thought of the worst-case scenario of quitting the academy. At worst, she would immediately sneak back to Zhangzhou after killing Arbor. Chapter 3762. At that time, with her father's protection, the crown prince of Xinzhou wouldn't bring his men to settle the score with her just for Arbor. Bitch, just wait to be tortured to death by me. Sparks flashed in the princess's eyes. After the spiritual magpie sped up, it carried her into the depths of the dense forest. The two mentors cursed inwardly. The antidote we gave Xiang Chang just now unsealed her spiritual power and spiritual sense. The mentor clenched his fists anxiously and angrily. I didn't expect this child to be so stubborn. The crown princess is in danger. After all, Princess Xiang Chang was leading her spiritual beast to crush a group of ordinary people. One of the mentors immediately stuffed a speed-increasing pill into his spiritual beast's mouth and urged it to catch up. However, the three-colored spiritual magpie was a flying spiritual beast, and its flying speed was one of the best among flying spiritual beasts. Now that it swallowed the speed-increasing pill given by Xiang Chang, its flying speed had reached its peak. The two mentors prayed in their hearts that they must arrive in time. Otherwise, a level 5 spiritual master and a flying spiritual beast could kill a few ordinary people very quickly. It probably wouldn't take more than a minute. The little crown princess and the others were about to be wiped out. At the same time, the people from Arbor were sitting under a big tree, roasting mushrooms and making mushroom chicken soup. The ingredients were all freshly cooked. The group surrounded the pot, each holding a bowl of soup and drinking happily. Hee. The little fatty drank a mouthful and put a piece of chicken into his mouth to chew. I remember the time when we were in the top academy's entrance test. Did you notice that Principal Yun's test style is quite similar to that of the previous principals of the top academy? Yes, I think so too. Qi Xianxian nodded and smiled while biting the bamboo chopsticks. Hey, did you notice that Principal Yin Piaomiao and Principal Yin Fiang seem to have the same surname? Are they brothers? They waved their hands. What do you mean? They don't even know each other. Where do you think Mentor Zhou and Principal Yin Fiang are now? Alas, the top academy must be very lonely without us. They talked as they ate. The thin chopsticks in Arbor's hand paused. He squinted his bright eyes and looked up at the sky. He shouted, "Spread out." The group of friends had cooperated many times and had a tacit understanding. After hearing Jojo's order, they immediately rolled backward in the same movement. The little fatty picked up Dumbo Chow's body very quickly and rolled out with him. What followed was a loud boom. A fireball the size of a millstone fiercely smashed onto the wooden shelf where the soup pots were placed. The wooden frame and the soup pot were smashed into pieces, and the soup splashed out. Bitch, today is the day you die. Xiangchang Commandery Princess stood on the three-colored spiritual magpie in the air. Her eyes flashed with excitement. With a wave of her finger, a ring of fiery red spiritual energy instantly formed in her hand. I'll see where you hide today. Boom. Another fireball the size of a fist came crashing down beside Little Fatty, breaking a huge boulder. The gravel fiercely flew towards Little Fatty and Chao Shu. Chapter 3763. Little Fatty hurriedly pressed the frail bookworm under his body. His thick back instantly blocked all the flying rocks. Instantly, he grimaced in pain and could not help but sigh. Fuck, without a defensive barrier, the feeling of being smashed by rocks was actually this painful. Fatty, Qi Xianxian, and the rest instantly exclaimed. A torrential fury surfaced in Xiao Mu's eyes, and she abruptly shot up from the ground, swiftly darting into the air. The blue spiritual cleansing flame covered her fist, and she smashed her fist towards the complacent Xiangchang Commandery Princess. Boom! Xiangchang Princess opened her mouth wide in shock. She was directly smashed down from the three-colored spiritual magpie by Arbor's fist. With a loud crash, she landed heavily on the ground. Her nose, mouth, and face were all smashed. She fearfully touched her disfigured face with trembling hands and screamed, "Bitch, bitch, bitch! You actually dared to hit me? What right do you have to hit me like this?" Before Xiangchang Princess could finish her sentence, Arbor suddenly pulled out her ferrule and slapped her hard to the ground. The little fellow raised the ferrule and aimed it at Xiangchang's back. After 17 or 18 fierce strikes, everyone could clearly hear the sound of Xiangchang's bones shattering. Ah! Ah! Xiangchang princess shrieked. She stretched out her hand and commanded the three-colored spiritual magpie to dive down and attack Arbor. Duan Muqing, who was at the side, would not just stand by and watch. He immediately summoned the emerald sword from his conscious and flew towards the three-colored spiritual magpie's neck. The three-colored spiritual magpie immediately let out a shrill cry. A section of its wing was chopped off. It flew through the air and fell to the ground, landing heavily beside Xiangchang princess. Bitch! Xiangchang princess cursed harshly. Duan Muqing was burning with rage. He swept his palm across. Endless with spiritual energy rushed out of his hand and transformed into a huge palm. It brushed past Xiangchang princess's face. After a crisp bam, half of Xiangchang princess's face was swollen beyond recognition. She could not even open her eyes. Only half of her eyes were left squinting. Wow! As soon as Xiangchang commandery princess opened her mouth, she spat out a mouthful of blood mixed with a few broken teeth. She was so frightened that her body trembled slightly, and she kept crawling backward. On the other side, Qi Xianxian and the others had already helped little fatty and Dumbo chow up. Under Qi Xuanxuan's scolding, the little fatty awkwardly took off his clothes and covered his chest, exposing the bruises on his back to everyone. You damned fatty. You don't even know how to hide your body of fat. Qi Xianxian was both anxious and angry. As she applied medicine on his back, she kept scolding him. I want to hide too. But I dodged, and the bookworm was smashed to death by the stone. We're going to lose. The rules of the competition stated that students without cultivation must be protected. Chao Shu's face was filled with guilt. Ivy dragged everyone down. I'm just a burden. What are you talking about? What burden? Qi Xianxian smacked Bookworm's head in annoyance. If that damn fatty didn't protect you, I would beat him up. We're all on the same team. Of course, we have to support each other and charge out together. That's right, that's right. Hua Tao, Lu Yu, and the others nodded in agreement. Chao Shu grinned foolishly. You guys are so nice. The team members who were inexplicably labeled as the nice guy rolled their eyes at him. Have mercy. The two teachers finally rushed over anxiously. Chapter 3764. The two mentors were worried about the safety of Arbor and the others, so they rushed over. However, the situation in front of them caused them to be greatly shocked. What was going on? Why did the situation feel so strange? The one who was stepped on like a dead dog was actually Xiangchang commandery princess. And she looked like she was seriously injured. The three-colored spiritual magpie beside her even had its wings chopped off. It looked even more miserable. Since when did a normal person have such power to counterattack? To be able to go against a level 5 spiritual master and her spiritual beast? How is this possible? Arbor retracted his little foot and turned to look at the two mentors expressionlessly. Mentors, save me. Like a paralyzed dead dog, Xiangchang commandery princess raised her finger strenuously and called out in a low voice. Step by step, she moved towards the two mentors. She cheated, this woman cheated, mentors, she cheated. Ah. She was cheated. Arbor, this bitch had spiritual power. There was also that handsome young man in her team. He also had spiritual power. They all had spiritual power. Ah, she was brutally beaten up by Arbor and that man. She had suffered so much. Cheated, she cheated, mentors, she cheated. Xiangchang commandery princess used all her strength to drag her battered body in front of the two mentors. The two mentors were completely stunned. Why was the situation completely different from what they had expected? Why was it that the one who was beaten to a pulp was Xiangchang commandery princess, and not Arbor and the rest? This made the two mentors feel that there was something wrong with the world. Mentors, she has spiritual power. She has spiritual power. And he also has spiritual power. This bitch, she cheated you, mentors. She has had spiritual power since the beginning. Xiangchang commandery princess pointed at Arbor, then raised her hand with difficulty to point at Duan Muqing. who was standing at the side with a cold gaze. A trace of resentment flashed in his eyes. This damned man before he hit me, he didn't have the slightest bit of pity for me. He actually slapped me so hard that half of my white teeth fell out. Although the two instructors were surprised, they shook their heads firmly. Impossible. Before leaving the academy, everyone's spiritual power and spiritual sense were sealed. Unless I can concoct the antidote myself, I won't be able to remove the seal on my body. But Xiao Mu and he, both have both spiritual energy and spiritual conscious. Ken, the dean must have gone easy on him. They must not have been sealed at all. Bullshit. Another mentor couldn't help but curse. The dean has always been a fair and just person. How could he go easy on two people in front of everyone? At this point, the teacher's eyes suddenly lit up. You ignorant girl, you keep saying that others are cheating. Have you forgotten? The 2 sets of herbs that you bought at a high price were taken away by other teams. Someone else must have used those 2 sets of herbs to create the antidote. Impossible, Xiangcheng Commandery Princess screamed angrily, trembling with anger. It hasn't even been half an hour. Who can concoct 2 unsealing pills? Duan Wuqing sneered. Sorry, Jojo only spent 5 minutes to concoct 2 unsealing pills. Chapter 3765. She and I both consumed the seal unsealing pill. Because it was obvious that they had the highest combat power in the team, the entire team supported them to consume the antidote first. Out of the 30 minutes you mentioned, Jojo only spent 5 minutes refining the pill. The rest of the time, we were eating. Qi Xianxian continued to provoke Xiangcheng Commandery Princess. Even the soup was almost finished. The entire Xikong planet team started mocking her. Lu Yu waved her arm and said with a smile, You haven't seen it before, right? Refining pills in 5 minutes isn't a legend. If you don't believe me, take out 2 more sets of medicinal herbs, and let Jojo refine them for you to see. Xiangcheng Commandery Princess was so angry that her entire body trembled uncontrollably. Impossible, these impetuous fellows were definitely lying to her. She wouldn't fall for their tricks. Impossible. Xiangcheng Commandery Princess used all her strength to roar these 3 words. Her eyes, which had been beaten into slits, stared fixedly at Arbor and the others as she shrieked loudly. The 2 mentors couldn't help but frown. This shrew's attitude made the 2 mentors feel especially disgusted. Especially when Xiangcheng Commandery Princess completely disregarded the 2 mentors and rushed over immediately after recovering her cultivation, wanting to lay her hands on her classmate. This greatly angered them. One of the mentors said with a sullen face, Xiangcheng Commandery Princess, not only have you been disqualified from this competition, but you've also been disqualified. When we return, we will report this matter truthfully to the dean. You should be prepared to drop out of school. Fine, I'll drop out. The Xiangcheng Commandery Princess bellowed angrily as she turned to look at Xiao Mu, her eyes brimming with resentment. You guys have 2 sets of standards for handling matters. It's completely unfair. I don't want to continue staying in the academy. What did you say? The 2 mentors' faces darkened at the same time. This girl actually dared to spout nonsense and casually smear the reputation of the Royal College. How could the 2 mentors tolerate this? Isn't that so? Xiangcheng Commandery Princess seemed to have suffered a great grievance as she cried out miserably. Arbor stole our medicinal herbs, our rubies, and our nameplates, but you don't blame him. You're actually blaming me? Now Arbor has beaten me up like this. Instead of standing up for your students, you're helping the villain. There's no point in staying in such an academy. Everyone looked at her as if she was an idiot. Duan Wuqing couldn't help but sneer. Didn't you come here looking for a beating? The rules of the competition have already been set. You've lost your identity medallion, so logically speaking, you've already lost the right to compete. You should immediately leave Phoenix Grove. But what about you? Qi Xianxian sneered. But you were unwilling to give up. As soon as you recovered your spiritual power, you came looking for trouble with us. Do you think that we're all ordinary people with sealed spiritual energy that you can beat, scold, and trample on? In the end, things didn't go as planned. If you're not asking for it, then what is? She said that you only have yourself to blame. She is absolutely right. Qi Xianxian interrupted Xiangchang Commandery Princess, who was about to refute. Someone still wants to crush us with this mediocre martial arts skill? Who knows, haha. Xiangchang Commandery Princess's face was burning red. She simply ignored their taunts, and suddenly turned to the two mentors. Gritting her teeth, she shouted, "Mentors, their team has seriously injured a student. Shouldn't they be stripped of their right to compete?" Chapter 3766. The two tutors looked at Xiangchang Commandery Princess, who kept causing trouble with an ugly expression, and said coldly, "After you recovered your spiritual energy, you immediately wanted to settle the score with your classmates. They were just defending themselves. It's completely reasonable. Do you expect their team of 6 normal people to not retaliate against a cultivator like you?" The other tutor scolded impatiently. "All right, stop talking. Go back to the academy and pack your things. We will write a letter to the dean immediately. The royal school can't afford to have a student like you with such a bad character." Xiangchang Commandery Princess burst into tears. She was anxious, angry, and hateful. How did she become a person with such a bad character? If this kind of reputation followed her for the rest of her life, would she still want to get married and live a good life? You've gone too far." Xiangchang Commandery Princess's cries shook the sky. She turned and stumbled out of the dense forest. Today's matter was simply going for wool and coming home shorn. It was too hateful. She originally thought that once she attacked, it would be easy to deal with those unarmed normal people. She didn't expect that to think that he would end up in such a miserable state. Not only did she fail to deal with Arbor, she also suffered a double loss. She offended the tutors, and was even forced to withdraw from the academy. She, Xiangchang Commandery Princess, was such a noble person. How could she suffer such a disgraceful matter? No, she must go back first, and explain the matter to her father. She must ask her father to stand up for her, and seek justice from the academy. That woman from Arbor was simply arrogant and despotic. She treated human lives like grass. She actually dared to beat her into a pig's head. Her face, could something really have happened to her face? Xiangchang Commandery Princess reached out to touch her swollen face. She was anxious and rushed out of the dense forest. She didn't even care about her personal spiritual beast, the 3-colored spiritual magpie. She had to return to Tsang State as soon as possible. Seeing that the annoying Xiangchang Commandery Princess had finally left, the two tutors turned to look at the people from Arbor. "You don't have to feel burdened. Your recording array should have recorded the process of student Xiao refining the elixir. As long as you used your own abilities to break the seal, no one can wrong you." Qi Xianxian and the others nodded. The two mentors exchanged a few more words before they left in satisfaction. Xiao Mu's gaze seemed to glance behind a thicket on the other side of the forest, her gaze icy and apathetic. Gu Yishuan, Huang Qishan, and the other two, who were hiding and watching the show, instantly felt petrified. It was as if they were being stared at by a ferocious beast. The 4 of them immediately felt a chill in their hearts. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly as they squatted there for a long time. It wasn't until Arbor and the others left that they slowly let out a sigh of relief. It was too dangerous just now. The feeling of being grabbed by the neck by a ferocious beast was too realistic. The 4 of them walked out of their hiding places and looked at each other. Then they couldn't help but smile bitterly. Returning to the academy as soon as possible was the right thing to do. If the little crown princess really set her sights on him, he would definitely have a hard time in the future. Thinking of this, the 4 of them very tacitly turned around and walked out of Phoenixwood Forest. Arbor and his little companions continued to walk into the depths of the forest. He lowered his head slightly, took out a communication jade talisman from his pocket, and wrote a line of small words on it. Chapter 3767. Xiangchang. Do you think this matter will end so easily? Arbor sneered in her heart. The moment she recovered her spiritual power, she immediately boarded the 3-colored spiritual magpie and came to take her life. Since that was the case, how could she let her go so easily? She did not kill her personally for the sake of the academy's reputation, but that did not mean she would let her go. A cold glint appeared in the little girl's eyes. A message flashed across the jade talisman, and the dark pavilion and night pavilion received an order at the same time. Gather all brothers and kill Xiang Chong on the way back to Tsang province. Xiang Chong, this idiot, wanted to go back to Tsang province to complain to her father? That would depend on whether she had the life to return to Tsang province. If In Xingho wanted to cause trouble for her, the little crown princess would be willing to entertain him at any time. Alright, nerd Chow. Qi Xian patted Chow Shudai's shoulder and said with a smile, how many spirit coins do you actually have on you? If we really want to buy those 2 sets of herbs, do you have 800,000 spirit coins? 1 liter of spirit coins is about 100,000, so I don't actually have 800,000 spirit coins on me. Everyone was speechless. Damn, so Jojo was just randomly bidding before. Actually, everyone did not have 800,000 spirit coins on them. No wonder Huang Qishan and the rest had to pool 5 or 6 people together to gather the required amount of spirit coins. Arbor looked at Nerd Chow expressionlessly and patted him on the shoulder, then turned and walked forward. What does Jojo mean? Qi Xuanxuan's mouth twitched. She's praising Nerd Chow for being smart. The little fatty rolled his eyes. It was easy to guess Lord Jojo's thoughts. As long as others did not cause trouble for her, she would not take the initiative to talk to others for 10,000 years. However, once someone provoked her, she wasn't someone who would let it go easily. Chow Shudai's trick suited Lord Jojo very well, so Jojo would naturally praise him. Duanmu, go with them and move around for a while. I'll go and find the remaining 6 sets of herbs. We'll continue after we've recovered. The Phoenix Wood Forest was fraught with danger. Currently, they were only active in the outer regions. If they wanted to go deeper, they would have to recover everyone's cultivation first. Otherwise, their hands and feet would be tied, making it difficult for them to make any moves. Now that Arbor had been restored, it was no longer difficult for her to gather herbs in the forest. After setting a time and place with everyone, Xiaomu moved out by herself. She moved very quickly and darted in and out of the nearby forest. Not long after, she found several medicinal herbs. Every time this medicinal herb appeared, it was naturally impossible for there to be only 1 or 2 of them. There would be at least 3 or 4 of them gathered together. Therefore, in less than an hour of searching in Arbor, he had almost gathered half of the herbs. When she returned later, she would be able to restore all of their strength. Arbor's eyes couldn't help but turn cold when he thought about how the rocks had all landed on the little fatty's back. Xiang Chong, that crazy woman, she deserved to die. Not only did she want to kill her, but she had also hurt her friends. She must not let someone who harbored evil intentions towards her continue to live in this world. Otherwise, if she was careless, she would harm the people around her. Arbor picked the last herb. Suddenly, her eyes turned cold. She slowly turned around and said coldly, "Why have you been secretly following me?" Chapter 3768. After a series of rustling noises, Qin Wen and her 2 younger brothers came out from behind the thicket and looked towards Arbor with a slight smile. "Crown Princess, apologies for the disturbance." Qin Wen bowed politely to Arbor. Arbor turned a blind eye to it and continued to look at her apathetically with a cold expression. "What's the matter?" 7th young Master Qin chuckled lightly and suddenly took a few steps forward. "Little miss, you disrupted our team, so shouldn't you give us some compensation?" Arbor gazed indifferently at the man in front of her, and a faint sense of revulsion welled up from the depths of her heart. She loathed this person. She didn't know why, but it was clearly their first time meeting, yet she instinctively loathed him. It should be said that she actually quite loathed anyone from the Qin estate who used any excuse to get close to her. An unpleasant rotting smell surged up from her body. "Did you grow up eating the flesh of corpses?" Arbor asked with an icy gaze. "You stink, stay away from me." 7th young Sir Qin looked in astonishment at the girl, who spoke viciously in front of him. There wasn't the slightest expression on her ice-cold little stoic face, as if the 3 people from the Qin estate simply didn't exist in front of her. He didn't seem to have offended this girl before, right? 7th young Sir Qin was standing at the very front, so he naturally didn't notice the faint mockery in Fifth Young Sir Chin's unperturbed eyes behind him. Fifth Young Sir Chin understood this younger brother of his very well. This self-proclaimed romantic and elegant character had never suffered a loss at the hands of a woman since he was young. However, the little stoic was probably going to disappoint him. Seventh Young Sir Chin's usual methods of dealing with other women clearly didn't work on the little stoic at all. Even though he had known the little stoic for a long time, he questioned himself and realized that he had never truly conversed with the little stoic until now. Sometimes, he could even clearly see the alienation and indifference in the little stoic's eyes towards him. This little miss was clearly very aloof, but she could be so gentle and warm even to a beggar. Fifth Young Sir Chin expressed that he really couldn't understand her. Seventh Young Master Chin barely suppressed the bit of anger in his chest, and continued to grin at Arbor as he said, "It's not nice for a girl to speak like this." Scram! Arbor flew into a rage, and a slithering wooden vine snaked toward Chin Shi. Fifth Young Sir Chin stood to the side, and quietly watched this younger brother of his, who thought highly of himself, continue to court disaster. Isn't it hilarious? He simply didn't understand the little stoic as a person, yet he boasted to them earlier, saying that he would ask the little stoic to bring them 2 antidotes while she was at it. Qinwen couldn't help but smile bitterly. She had long known that this little girl was not to be trifled with. Big brother and second brother had warned her not to provoke this girl. But seventh brother Qinwen let out a long sigh, knowing that this matter had most likely been messed up. The little girl loathed them so much. So how could she possibly be kind enough to refine medicinal pills for them? She had previously said that instead of hiding at the side and discussing how to get this girl to help, it would be better to quickly wander around the Phoenix Wood Forest and see if they could bump into Big Brother's team. Sigh. Yet seventh brother refused to listen to her. Great, now he's going to have to suffer for it. While she was pondering, the whip shadow formed by Arbor's wooden vine had already landed heavily beside seventh young Sir Chin's feet. A strong gust of wind blew. Chapter 3769. If it weren't for the fact that seventh Chin was a little clever and swiftly dodged when he saw that the situation wasn't right, he would have long been flung to the ground by the vine whip. At this moment he crawled up, and his eyes were instantly tainted with intense fury. Arbor. Arbor gazed coldly at the man in front of her, her gaze as if she was looking at a corpse. Seeing that they were about to make a scene, Qinwen hastily stepped forward and pushed seventh young Master Qin behind her. She hastily smiled apologetically at Arbor and said, "Crown Princess, it was my seventh brother who was a bit rash. Sorry. Sister Qinwen, how are you going to apologize to her?" Seventh Qin was furious, and he glared coldly at Arbor, as if he was looking at a monster who didn't smile. What kind of woman was this? How could she be so hateful? Arbor didn't feel like paying attention to this person. In any case, she had basically finished harvesting all the medicinal herbs in this area. Since there was such an annoying person here, then she would change locations as soon as possible and continue to gather the remaining medicinal herbs. The appointed time with Duanmu Qing and the others was within 4 hours. Whether or not she had gathered all 6 sets of medicinal herbs, she had to go back. If she didn't have 6 sets of medicinal herbs, 5 sets were actually fine too. Chao Shudai didn't need a seal unsealing pill anyway. However, she wanted to find 1 or 2 sets as much as possible. If she happened to run into Jojo's Lien and the others, they could also use them. If it weren't for the recording talisman matrix, she could actually flash to Forest Planet and have Chocho gather some for her. It was just that this way, the possibility of being exposed was a bit high. Since the most difficult time hadn't arrived yet, there was no need to take that risk. At most, she would have to make 2 more trips. They watched as Arbor abandoned the 3 of them and swaggered off. Seventh Qin simply gnashed his teeth in anger. What's wrong with this woman? Qinwen glanced at her seventh brother exasperatedly. Can you not cause trouble? We're just 2 cripples now. Look at Crown Princess just now. She's clearly already able to use spiritual energy. If you provoke her, she can directly rush up and beat you up, then snatch your identity tablet and ruby. Wouldn't all our previous efforts be wasted? Seventh Chin couldn't help but tremble all over. It was only now that his brain finally caught on, and he felt that what elder sister Chin said was very reasonable. What a close shave. If his identity card had been snatched away, wouldn't he be so unlucky as to be eliminated? If the wise, mighty, and extraordinarily handsome seventh young Master Chin couldn't even enter the final round of the Heaven Origin roll, then all the girls in Dragonflame City would laugh their heads off. Fortunately, she didn't suddenly go berserk and rush over to hit me. Seventh young Master Chin inwardly said in alarm. Chin couldn't help but twitch his mouth. Yet the fifth young Master Chin behind her couldn't help sneering. Upon hearing this, seventh Chin immediately turned around and glowered at fifth young Sir Chin. What are you laughing at? A piece of trash like him actually dared to laugh at him? He didn't even despise him for being a burden, yet he still dared to laugh at him. He was simply tired of living. Fifth young Master Chin glanced at him apathetically. I'm laughing at you for thinking too much. What do you mean? It's impossible for her to get close to you. Fifth young Master Chin said coldly. She can't wait to hate you, so how could she be willing to get close to you? So you're simply thinking too much. Wouldn't she have to touch you if she used her fist to hit you? This little stoic simply despises you so much that she doesn't even want to touch the corner of your clothes with her fist. That's how it is. Chapter 3770. Seventh young Master Chin's face instantly darkened completely. As soon as he recalled the little lady's icy cold words to him just now, he suddenly felt a bit uncomfortable all over. Perhaps Fifth Chin's analysis was right, and the little lass was simply unwilling to look at him in disdain. Seventh young Master Chin couldn't resist lowering his head to glance at himself. Handsome and dignified, he had the bearing of an immortal. He was practically on par with his handsome and otherworldly big brother and second brother. He truly couldn't see how he couldn't enter the stoic face's eyes. Seventh Chin was so angry that his eyes were about to spew fire, and he turned to glare at Fifth Chin. Say that again if you have the guts? All right. Chin smiled wryly and promptly stepped forward to stop the two brothers. She knew that there was animosity between the two. But wasn't this an extraordinary period? How could she create a wall between her brothers? Let's talk about other matters later. Chin promptly separated the two from each other and said, we still have to find big brother and second brother as soon as possible. Seventh Chin gave a sullen in. That's right. Only after finding big brother and second brother can we have them help unseal the pill for us. Fifth Chin sneered. Don't indulge in wild fantasies. You can only rely on the alchemists in your own team to unseal the pill. Aren't you going to ask other people for help breaking the rules? The rules didn't say that we can't ask other teams' alchemists to unseal the pill, Seventh Chin said with an icy expression. Chin also nodded in agreement. I think seventh brother is right on this point. The rules indeed didn't state it directly. This could also be considered a loophole for them to exploit. After abandoning the three people from the Chin estate, Arbor wandered around the nearby forest and successfully gathered 2 more batches of medicinal herbs. Only then did he rush back to the agreed-upon location with Duan Muqing and the others. After Arbor finished refining the unsealing pill and fed it to everyone, it didn't take long for everyone to regain their spiritual power and spiritual sense. Everyone was beaming with joy as they opened their respective inner worlds and checked the treasures in their inner worlds. Oh my God, I finally have an inner world. The time shown on the back of the identity card was 104, which meant that after they entered the forest, they had already removed the seal on their bodies within 8 hours. It's late now. Let's eat some dry food and rest first. Arbor winked at everyone. I'll wake you up at 5. Get to work. Everyone immediately became spirited and nodded in unison. If Jojo said that, it must be something good after a casual dinner. Arbor used a talisman from his inner world to set up a double defensive array around everyone. Now that the seal had been broken, his inner world was no longer restricted and could be used as he pleased. After setting up the array glyphs, there was no need for anyone to keep watch at night, and everyone could sleep peacefully at night. Entering the tent, the group of people went to rest happily. Naturally, they did not know how many students from the royal school had been tricked into tears by their own teachers that night. At 5 o'clock the next day, Arbor woke up his friends, quietly packed up his belongings, and embarked on the road to the small supply point. "Jojo, where are we going? The night is dark and the wind is strong. It's suitable for a robbery." "Robbery?" Chao Shu's scream was covered by little Fatty. "Who are we robbing?" Qi Xuanxuan's eyes flashed with excitement. "Since you dared to trick me, you should be prepared to be robbed." Arbor snorted and brought his teammates to stand in front of the small supply point. Under the illumination of the half-moon, 8 long shadows appeared. Chapter 3771. The chilly wind and waning moon gave off a mysterious feeling. Arbor raised his small hand and waved it forward. In an instant, 6 figures rushed into the small supply point and headed in the direction they were familiar with during the day. The shop owners who did business in the commercial district usually rented a room in the small inn next door for a long time to rest. Because old Qi had made a lot of money today, he packed up his stall early and went back to his room to sleep. Even when he was sleeping, he hugged the bag of coins and salivated happily. There was no need to worry about public security in the supply point. Generally, robberies happened outside the supply point in the Phoenix Forest. So as long as he didn't leave the supply point, no one would think about his 800,000 spirit coins. Moreover, old Qi too believed that he had been doing business in this area for decades. In any case, he could be considered to have some face. No one would dare to rob him, who knew old Qi was awakened by a cold wind and wanted to straighten up in an instant. However, his vision was blurry and his movements were restricted. It took him a long while before he could react to the situation. Was he put into a sack in the middle of the night? He was shocked and lowered his head to look at the bag of spirit coins in his arms. It was gone. The bag of spirit coins had disappeared without a trace. Heavens, that was 800,000 spirit coins. Arbor and the others surrounded the sack and didn't make a sound. As soon as Qiaomu's palm landed, the 7 people's 14 feet simultaneously stomped down on old Qi's body. "You profiteer wanted to harm people. You smelly profiteer dared to deceive Sir Jojo. I'll kill you." Old Qi didn't know where he was at this time, and could only shout for help. Everyone's eyes were full of ridicule as they stepped on the damned old man. This old man was very vexing. Who knew how many people he had cheated when he sold medicinal herbs? He didn't have a bit of benevolence, and was a completely shameless profiteer. Arbor waved his hand, and everyone stopped. Old Qi whimpered and begged for mercy. It wasn't until the sound of the footsteps faded away that he finally struggled out of the tightly tied sack with all his might. At first glance, he saw that the forest was densely packed with trees, and he was so scared that he almost peed his pants. Fortunately, the sky was already slightly bright at this time. Old Qi too stifled his cry of panic in his throat, afraid that his cry would attract the attacks of wild wolves. He calmed himself down, barely managed to identify the direction, and walked in the direction of the small supply point with a long face. He didn't expect that the 800,000 spirit coins would be snatched away before he could even warm them up for a night. Don't let him find out who stole his spirit coins and carried him to this hillside in the middle of the night to be exposed to the wind. Once he found that person, he would skin him alive. At the same time, Arbor and his 7 team members squatted under a tree and began to count the spirit coins in the bag. 800,000 spirit coins, 100,000 per person. Although they didn't lack spirit coins, they still felt happy to rob that profiteer. That old geezer should be crying when he returns. Qi Xianxian giggled as she spoke. Little Fatty and the others looked at each other and couldn't help but laugh. All right, the countdown is less than 100. It's time for us to walk into the depths of the forest and see if we can find something like the phoenix tree or the phoenix flower. Duan Muqing said with a faint smile. Chapter 3772. Jingle, jingle, jingle. Following the sound of a string of bells, several men who had been holed up at the supply point playing Pai Gao all night turned to look at the entrance one after another. They saw a 16 or 17-year-old girl with a pink veil covering her face and bare feet walking in. 2 bells were attached to each of her fair ankles, and when she walked, the bells made a tinkling sound. Behind the girl were 7 or 8 women with outstanding looks. Among them, a black-clothed woman with an enchanting figure and a supple snake-like waist was very eye-catching. The men's gazes towards the women were clearly a bit hotter. Oh, everyone should be tired after a day's journey. Younger sister Fulling, let's take a break here first. The black-clothed woman's voice was seductive, and the moment she opened her mouth to speak, those men's souls were captivated. Sikong Fulling snorted and curled her lips noncommittally. Deputy Cult Master Meng, you and your subordinates are too delicate. You have to take a break after walking for a few minutes. With your traveling speed, you won't reach your destination next year. The black-clothed woman chuckled. Younger sister Fulling, you came from the lower star domain and don't understand the living habits of our 3 prefectures. The pace of life here isn't so fast. As soon as that woman opened her mouth to speak, the 7 or 8 veiled girls behind her giggled like background music. This deputy cult master Meng was obviously full of mockery and looked down on Sikong Fulling's background from the lower star domain from the bottom of his heart. Sikong Fulling didn't get angry and merely rolled her eyes indifferently. Rest by yourselves if you want. I'll take my leave first. In any case, she wouldn't be able to accomplish anything major with these people, so it would be easier for her to act alone. Sikong Fulling looked like she couldn't be bothered with this group of women, and turned to leave when she suddenly saw an oncoming team. They were all young men, all of them with extraordinary looks, wearing a white academy uniform. They should be disciples from some academy, who came out for experiential training. Sikong Fulling glanced at the leader, and her jaw nearly fell off instantly. She subconsciously took a few steps back, and obediently returned to Vice Sect Leader Meng's side, pretending to be an innocent little quail. This small supply point should have medicinal herbs for sale. Emo Lian spoke indifferently. When she walked past Sikong Fulling and the others, her footsteps did not pause in the slightest, and her gaze did not linger in the slightest. The 7 young men following behind him nodded in succession upon hearing this, and their gazes occasionally swept past Sikong Fulling's group of women, but they did not linger for a moment. Sikong Fulling continued to be a pure and innocent quail. The girl in black's eyes couldn't help but light up. She turned sideways and took 2 steps towards the few men, smiling as she asked, "Hey, are you guys students from the Imperial Academy? Wasn't this obvious?" Do Fenghua and the others paused their steps and looked at Meng Meiyu with furrowed brows. Half of the woman's body was in front of them, so they could only take a detour. After all, the small door in front of them wasn't very big, and this woman practically blocked half the door with her body. Duan Yu and Emo Lian, who had already entered the door ahead of them, turned their heads at the same time to look at Mu Xingchen, Duan Tianya, and the others who were blocked outside the door by that woman. They frowned in displeasure. Chapter 3773. Can't you just throw people out if they're blocking your way? Duan Yu asked coolly. Mu Xingchen and the others couldn't resist exchanging glances. Hey, big brother. We're cripples without cultivation right now. Throw what? If we can't throw people out, we'll be thrown out and crippled instead. Sikong Fulling was slightly shocked. She turned to look at Meng Meiyu and said coldly, I advise you to hurry and give way. Do you think Prince Mo and the others are vegetarians? Thinking back to when she was on Sikong Planet, because of a suspicion, that damn crown prince locked her up in prison for several whole days. Every time she thought of that incident, Sikong Fulling felt unbearably weary. The crown prince was here, but the little stoic wasn't. Weren't the little stoic and Prince Mo glued to each other all day long? Why was the crown prince here today, but the stoic wasn't? Prince Mo wouldn't notice Sikong Fulling at all if she didn't speak. Once she spoke, the crown prince's gaze shifted to her face, and he asked coldly with a frown, Who are you? Why did he feel like she was a bit familiar? Sikong Fulling twitched her mouth and inexplicably said, Passerby. Duan Yu couldn't resist laughing and elbowed the calm Prince Mo. You actually know another woman. I'll definitely tell Jojo later. Humph. Jojo won't listen to your one-sided slanderous words. Emolian glanced at him and pursed her lips. If you dare to spout nonsense, I'll kill you tonight to silence you. Mu Xingchen. Are these two idiots? He felt so tired watching them dog-eat-dog the entire time. Because after these two fellows were done dog-eat-dog, they even dragged him into the water. For example, big brother, Emolian said she'll kill me. Duan Yu shouted angrily at Mu Xingchen. Miss, please make way. Mu Xingchen speechlessly rolled his eyes at Duan Yu before speaking to the woman in black, Meng Meiyu. Young master, does the royal school come out in groups to train? Meng Meiyu asked with a smile. Why don't we travel together? Look, it's very dangerous for us girls to walk alone in the Phoenix Wood Forest. Big sister, we are all weak chickens now. I can't protect any of you. The calmness on Mu Xingchen's face was almost torn apart. He said expressionlessly, I'm sorry, we can't team up with others during the academy's training. Please step aside. A faint smile flashed across Meng Meiyu's eyes, and she leaned into Mu Xingchen's embrace. What's wrong with that? I'm not going to team up with you. I'm just going to travel with you. Mu Xingchen hurriedly took a few steps back, and Meng Meiyu's face was immediately blocked by a frying pan. Don't mess around. The youth holding the frying pan anxiously stepped forward and shouted at Meng Meiyu. This youth was a normal person in Emolien's team. His name was Zhao Xing, and he was a chef by profession. His culinary skills were quite good, and he could cook the simplest things into extremely delicious food. Emolien was already secretly considering how to lure him back to be her family's private chef. If Emolien's team recovered their strength, they should be the strongest team in the entire academy. Disregarding that Zhao Xing, other than Emolien and Duan Yu, Mu Xingchen, who had reached the God Realm, and Duan Tianya, who was about to break through to the God Realm, were also quite strong. Chapter 3774. Ma Ta and the Duke of Eternal Peace's heir, Mo Lu, were also high-level spiritual realm cultivators. In addition to Dou Fenghua, who was quite skilled in pill medicine, the entire team could be said to be perfectly equipped. Of course, the prerequisite was that they had to recover their cultivation as soon as possible. Meng Meiyu's expression darkened slightly as she sized up this unprepossessing youth. Among the 7 handsome men, this little brother was clearly the most average-looking one. Meng Meiyu naturally looked down on him, so she pushed his frying pan to the side. Go away. With Zhao Xing blocking Meng Meiyu with his frying pan, Mo Lu, Mu Xingchen, and the others quickly turned sideways and entered. Before they recovered their strength, they didn't want to complicate matters and bicker with these women. Shopkeeper, I need these medicinal herbs. Give me 7 portions according to the list. Dou Fenghua handed over a pill prescription. That shopkeeper was originally sitting behind the counter dejectedly, so his face couldn't be seen clearly. When he looked up, his bruised and swollen face gave Dou Fenghua a fright. Uffed. Laughter came from the side. Duan Yu and the others turned to look and saw that it was the small bosses of the nearby stalls. Someone among them was teasing the shopkeeper of the medicinal herb shop. Old Chi, what happened? Did you get dragged out and beaten up on a moonless and windy night? Old Chi gnashed his teeth in resentment. Although that guy's mouth was foul, he actually guessed correctly. Wasn't it just a moonless and windy night? So he was dragged out and beaten up violently, even robbing the 800,000 spirit coins he worked so hard to earn? When Old Chi thought of this, he felt uncomfortable all over. His face was bruised and swollen, and just as he was about to speak, he inadvertently pulled at the wound at the corner of his mouth, causing him to hiss in pain as he covered his mouth. When he took the list of medicinal herbs and looked at it, his eyes instantly focused. When he looked up at Emolien and the others, his heart suddenly jolted. You guys are from the same academy as those 2 batches of students yesterday, right? A light bulb lit up in his mind. Could those people who put a gunny sack over him and beat him up be the batch of students who paid 800,000 spirit coins? Only they would be unwilling to give up and come up with such a despicable move. Old Chi-Tu's face fell as he said coldly to Emolien and the rest. I don't have the materials. Even if I did, I wouldn't sell it to you. This group of students was so black-hearted that it was scary. As soon as he paid, He was dragged out and beaten up before snatching the money back. Their moral conduct was so bad that they were simply ruining the reputation of their academy. Dou Fenghua was stunned. She carefully looked at the old man's face and felt that he was not joking. Dou Fenghua said in a warm voice, "Elder, why is that? How could there still be people who were unwilling to earn money in this day and age?" This old man's family was the only one selling medicinal herbs in this small supply point. If he refused to help, then they would have to go into the forest to pick the herbs themselves. This would take a lot of time. Duan Yu pursed his lips and harumphed. Next to Emolian, he muttered, "This old man looks so weird. I wonder who hit him with this face full of injuries. Look at that face of his. Doesn't it look like a large footprint from the middle down?" Zhao Xing, the lad holding the frying pan, couldn't resist asking. Everyone was taken aback, and when they turned to look at the old man's face that was as black as the bottom of the frying pan, they all erupted in laughter. It had to be said that Zhao Xing, this lad, had good eyesight. That really was a large footprint. Chapter 3775. It wasn't that there was an additional black mark on the old man's face, but that mark felt like a relief sculpture. Through the sunlight that shone in, one could tell it was a large footprint. The person who stepped on him clearly put in some effort. He didn't collapse his nose or slanted his face, but left a large footprint in the middle of his face. From the looks of it, the footprint might stay on the old man's face for 3 to 7 days. It was simply hilarious. Duan Yu and the others smiled faintly as their gazes followed the old man's body. Someone ran over with a cry of surprise and swiftly grabbed Old Chi's sleeve. "Aya, Old Chi, your body is covered in footprints." There were also many footprints on his arm. Old Chi's face darkened at once. He used all kinds of medicinal herbs to wash these footprints after returning, but they couldn't fade away. It could be seen how black-hearted those students were. He merely cheated them out of 800,000 spirit coins, but they actually took advantage of the dark night to leave footprints all over his body. It was simply infuriating. However, Emolian and Duan Yu's gazes landed on that old man's claw. The small half-footprint above his wrist looked familiar, no matter how they looked at it. The two of them unexpectedly met each other's eyes and exchanged probing gazes. Jojo beat him up? It was too similar. Those footprints were clearly left by the little fellow. It seemed that the little fellow must have come here in the past 2 days to buy medicinal herbs. Dou Fenghua put away that pill recipe and turned to say to everyone, "Let's go." Since this old man wasn't willing to gather medicinal herbs for them, then they wouldn't waste time. They would go gather the herbs themselves. "Hey, old man." Duan Yu suddenly jumped onto the counter and unhurriedly pulled out a small emerald green bamboo tube from his sleeve. He shook it up and down in front of the old man's face with a grin. "I'll give you a chance now. Hand over all the medicinal herbs you previously collected, and we'll pay you spirit coins. Otherwise," he chuckled, "I can only kill and plunder." "Student Duan Yu, it's not good to do that." Zhao Xing weakly refuted. Seeing that Mu Xingchen and the others had turned to look at him, this student could only submit to the evil forces and silently shut his mouth. "You can't redo your life. I don't think you're going to try out what it means to be reduced to ashes." The old man shuddered unconsciously and quickly shook his head. This is a fortification. You guys don't mess around." "I didn't mess around." Duan Yu patted the old man's dog head. "I was discussing something with you." The old man shrunk his neck and took 2 steps back. This time he retreated to the wall. With his back against the cold wall, his mind became clearer. It seemed that the students from yesterday and today were not people to be trifled with. Forget it. A wise man knew better than to fight when the odds were against him. He would just earn a little bit of money and get rid of these demon gods. I have indeed collected 3 sets of medicinal herbs." He was very business-minded. Ever since he sold those 2 sets of medicinal herbs at sky-high prices yesterday, he casually had people collect these herbs for him. From midnight to dawn, he had already collected 3 sets of medicinal herbs. He originally thought that he could sell them for a sky-high price after 2 days, but he didn't dare to bid recklessly when he encountered this group of fiends today. So he only quoted a price of 2,000 spirit coins. Chapter 3776. 2,000 spirit coins for 3 sets of medicinal ingredients? Duanyu blinked. The old man immediately shook his head like a rattledrum. 2,000 per set. This was already an extremely low price. Yesterday's sky-high price of 800,000 spirit coins was still fresh in their minds. Selling these 3 sets of medicinal ingredients at such a low price was truly a huge loss. Everyone ignored the old man's mutterings. After paying, they had Dou Fenghua put away the 3 sets of medicinal ingredients. Duanyu also put away the 9 Jade Heaven's Thunder, and turned back to smile faintly at the old man. The old man felt a chill run down his spine for no reason, and he couldn't help hugging his arm in horror. This young man's smile was a bit eerie, simply frightening. Oh, these people couldn't have tricked him again, right? The old man tensed up as he inwardly pondered. However, he wasn't on guard yesterday. He already called the 2 shop assistants back early this morning, so there shouldn't be any major issues. With this thought, the old man felt a bit better. Mo Lian and Duanyu were naturally in a good mood after settling their matters. The 2 planned to find a place to settle down first, so that Dou Fenghua could refine the pills first. However, they were stopped by Vice Cult Master Meng again, as soon as they stepped out of the door. Meng Meiyu smiled at them flirtatiously. Little brothers, have you considered? Considered what? They looked at each other, but no one was willing to respond to this woman who spoke strangely. Meng Meiyu's gaze flickered, and she said with a sweet smile, "All right then. Since you haven't thought it through, then I'll let you reconsider." Another woman walked out from behind Meng Meiyu and harumphed at Mo Lian and Duanyu. "I say, don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit." She sized them up and said disdainfully, "You don't have any spiritual energy fluctuations on your bodies at all. You're merely a few normal people. Don't tell me you want to contend with our vice cult master Meng?" Sikong Fuling was taken aback, and she quickly sized up Mo Lian and the others before ruthlessly rolling her eyes at them. Pretending to be little white rabbits. Who didn't know that Prince Mo's cultivation was so high that no one in the younger generation could match him? To be able to stand beside the crown prince, how could a group of people be ordinary? Sikong Fuling reckoned that this group of swindlers must have deliberately suppressed their cultivation strength in secret. His goal was very simple. He came to Phoenix Grove to trick people. "Duanyu," Mo Lian impatiently called him. Duanyu pulled out the Jade Heavenly Thunder from his pocket and helplessly raised his arm in Meng Meiyu's direction. Scram! He opened the back cover with his finger and instantly sucked in a jade bead. He twisted the switch and gently pressed it down. The green light suddenly exploded, and a loud boom shook the sky. Large patches of strange green flames began to burn, scaring everyone in the courtyard into fleeing for their lives. Meng Meiyu and her subordinates had already been blasted away. Sikong Fuling, who was standing some distance away from them, hurriedly raised her hand and patted her own chest hard. Thank goodness she was quick-witted and stayed far away from them. Otherwise, she would definitely be implicated. It looked like she had better leave this bunch of morons as soon as possible. Otherwise, she would be implicated by them tomorrow, if she wasn't unlucky today. When Sikong Fuling thought of this, how could she still turn back to look at Meng Meiyu and the others? She directly ran out of the small courtyard. Chapter 3777. Acting alone was better than being tricked by a pig teammate. Sikong Fuling thought to herself. After exiting the courtyard, Prince Mo and the rest were nowhere to be seen. Sikong Fuling, on the other hand, secretly sighed in relief. She was well aware of the extent of Prince Mo's trickery. Only an idiot would invite him to join them on the road. Humph. Meng Meiyu had a screw loose, so don't blame him for torturing her. Sikong Fuling patted her chest again. After running away from the small supply point, she slipped into the Phoenix Wood Forest and disappeared without a trace. As for Mo Lian's group, they naturally found a quiet place in the Phoenix Wood Forest to wait for Dou Fenghua to concoct the antidote. They didn't care about wasting this bit of time. As long as Dou Fenghua could concoct the antidote, no matter how long they had to wait, they would crush them in the remaining few days after they recovered their strength. Who were those women just now? Mata asked curiously. Why were they dressed so skimpily? Who knows, they don't look like good people. The Duan family's third young master harumphed as he squatted on the ground while biting a leaf. They inexplicably blocked their path and caused trouble for them. They deserved to be blown up. So what if they were normal people? Who said that normal people couldn't counterattack? Could it be that they couldn't have other abilities without cultivation? After these 2 days of experience, their view of ordinary people had changed a little. After this period of experience, their mental state had grown quite a bit. I wonder where Jojo is, Duanyu muttered. Prince Mo's eyes flickered, and he coughed lightly before pushing aside the branches and hiding behind another large tree. Duanyu followed after him as he softly called out, "What are you doing? What is this?" He paused and looked at Emolien's hand in surprise. The youth leaning against the tree trunk absent-mindedly glanced up at him and grumpily said, "Looking for Jojo." Duanyu jumped over at once and sat down next to Emolien. His gaze landed on the green ointment in his hand. "Holywood essence." He lowered his voice and said in surprise. Within this ball of Holywood essence, there was actually a small figure that was constantly jumping around, waving its 2 small hands expressionlessly as it walked around. Duanyu wanted to laugh, but he coughed lightly. However, there was some hesitation in his eyes. Why would there be soul fragments? I suspect that her soul self-detonated. Duanyu was taken aback when he heard Emolien's icy voice. I haven't asked her yet. Emolien poked the Holywood essence with her finger. Do you think I should ask? Ask. Duanyu nodded. Of course I have to ask. If you don't ask, how do you know if there are any hidden dangers? Emolien remained silent. He was actually a little afraid to ask her about her past. He could tell that every time he asked her about her past, the little fellow would be emotionally unstable. Since it was already in the past, there was no need to peel away the painful memories of the past. Duanyu naturally understood. He glanced at Emolien and said dryly, You can only help her after asking clearly. Emolien's heart thumped, and she turned to look at him, before looking down at the round Holywood essence in her hand. She poked the little person inside. Where is Jojo? The little person turned around, the back of its head facing them. It raised a small finger and pointed forward. Duanyu chuckled, and turned to look at him before elbowing him. Chapter 3778. Sai, you didn't give this soul fragment to Jojo on purpose, right? What do you mean by on purpose? I forgot. Emolien said in all seriousness. Forget my ass. She probably hid this soul fragment of Jojo on her, because she found it adorable. Emolien coughed lightly, and put away the sacred wood essence. Give it to her later. Duanyu blinked. If you give it to her later, then give it to me to play with first. He didn't expect the little stoic's soul fragment to also be expressionless. So fun. Emolien spat at him, and couldn't be bothered to pay attention to this guy. We have Jojo's direction. We can go find her after eating the unsealing pill. While they were discussing, Arbor's group had already reached the depths of the forest and continued forward. They didn't encounter any danger along the way. Occasionally 2 or 3 ignorant little beasts would jump out, but they were all chased away by the group. Everyone didn't know that the group of miserable students at the Royal Academy were collectively suffering from bad luck. Most of them still hadn't reached the entrance of Phoenix Wood Forest at this time, and were still sprinting madly from Oxhead Mountain to Phoenix Wood Forest. Legend has it that the Phoenix tribe, which has been living in seclusion for 1,000 years, is hidden inside this Phoenix Wood Forest. Who knows if it's true or not? The little fatty muttered. It's true. Chao-Chi nodded and said seriously, the Phoenix tribe, which has been living in seclusion for 1,000 years, simply won't come out unless there's something special. They have an ancient inheritance. Perhaps someone in the Phoenix tribe inherited a portion of the sacred beast Golden Phoenix's bloodline. They're so noble that they can't be bothered to interact with the common people. Oh. The little stoic maiden sound like she was listening to a story, which instantly made our dear Chao-Chi lose interest in continuing to speak. What was going on? When talking to the stoic face, there was a strange feeling of choking halfway through. Don't you guys feel like someone is following us? Qi Xianxian suddenly paused and looked back. There were trees everywhere in the forest, When she turned around, she only saw the swaying shadows of the trees and didn't see anything. Qi Xianxian mocked herself for being overly suspicious as she rubbed her nose. "I've been following him for more than an hour," Duanmu said calmly. Qi Xianxian was stunned. She realized that she wasn't mistaken. Jojo and Duanmu knew that someone was tailing them. "What are these people doing? We don't know why they are here." Duanmu Qing smiled coldly. "But I know that they will be in trouble soon." Everyone was speechless. Because Arbor had stopped and turned around. Everyone stopped in their tracks and turned around at the same time. At this time, they had already walked into the depths of the forest. There was no one around. The wind had stopped, and the grass was still. It was very quiet. "Come out. You're hiding like a villain." As soon as Arbor finished speaking, the surroundings were still silent. It was as if Arbor was mistaken, and there was no one here. Arbor frowned and flicked an invisibility talisman. "Sneaky. Do you think the invisibility talisman can hide your aura?" When the invisibility talisman landed, several tall and sturdy figures were immediately exposed from the trees. The leader was a man with a saber scar at the corner of his left eye. He grinned at the group. "Little miss, you have some tricks up your sleeve." All of a sudden, a powerful wave of saint energy erupted from his body. Arbor and the others were startled, and their gazes changed slightly. Chapter 3779. 4. 1379 Purpose. The man in front of her was actually a transcendent realm cultivator. He had 3 people behind him, and from the looks of it, their strength could not be underestimated. Arbor could not help but be a little stunned. She had thought that these people were following them sneakily for money. But would a transcendent realm cultivator do such a boring thing? It seemed that they had a purpose, and were heading for them. Or more accurately, they were heading for her. Arbor. Her eyes instantly turned cold. She placed a small hand behind her back and gestured at Duanmu Qing and the others. "Take the recording array and leave." It was very simple. With the recording array, Arbor could not open her star domain at all. Duanmu Qing and the others immediately reacted and nodded at the same time. With great tacit understanding, they picked up Chao Shu, turned around and ran out. The recording array was naturally taken away by Duanmu Qing and the others. None of them were worried about Lord Jojo. So what if he was a transcendent realm cultivator? Although Jojo did not have much chance of winning against them, as long as he opened his spirit domain, he could crush them in minutes. Not a single one of the 4 people moved. Obviously, the little girl had guessed correctly. These people had come for her. Arbor. The leader, the man with the knife mark under his eyes, could not help but be stunned when he saw this situation. Then he laughed out loud. "So the team you lead is only SOSO. When they saw us, they were so scared that they scattered like birds and beasts." Another burly man also teased. "Flying separately when a disaster is imminent. You did the right thing." Their gazes circled Arbor's face mockingly. One of them smiled wretchedly and approached the man with the knife mark. He said viciously, "Big brother, it seems that we were too nervous. Isn't this little girl just a spirit realm cultivator? Before we kill her later, why don't we play with her first, as their big brother?" The man with the knife mark was obviously smart enough. He glanced at his subordinate and said coldly, "Let's get down to business. Little girl, if you're willing to end your own life, it will save us a lot of trouble. If not," the burly man with the knife mark sneered, his meaning very obvious. If he were to make a move, he would definitely make Sir Jojo suffer. Arbor looked at him expressionlessly for a while, his expression a little distressed. "You're not from Tianyun." These people didn't have any special energy fluctuations on them. They didn't feel like they were sent by Tianyun. Moreover, Tianyun had just moved all the people of the Long family branch in Dragonflame City away a while ago. He was probably planning a big move in the near future, so he probably didn't have time to come here and talk nonsense with her. That's right. That group of Long family members had gone to seek refuge with Tianyun. Arbor was very clear. The underworld state had no reason to protect the families that had escaped from the divine prefecture. Naturally, the Tsangzhou state also felt that there was no need to protect the Long family. Where could those people hide? Naturally, They could only seek refuge from the Heavenly Fate Palace and ask for protection. Otherwise, why was there no news of that long family branch after so long? It was obvious that they had found a place to hide. If they weren't sent by the Heavenly Fate Palace and came to kill her while she was out training, then it could only be that old opponent. Arbor's eyes flashed slightly, and his heart suddenly moved. It seemed that this old bastard had arranged several spies in the academy. She had just gone to the Phoenix Forest to train, and there were people following her. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.